About how you're doing, Robby, with your Green Bay Packers shirt on.
Oh, it's a great day. It's a great day. Aaron Rodgers, he's back to the pack, baby. We knew it was going to happen at some point. We didn't know that, but I predicted it was going to happen at some point. And he's back.
So is there anything to this, the timing of this? I mean, obviously camp starting, all this stuff, but like I was really looking forward to the shareholders meeting.
Oh, yeah.
The Packers, the angry town of Green Bay, like screaming. Like I'm thinking of Hoosiers.
Oh, yeah.
You with me on Hoosiers? Yeah. Okay. You may be the only one here. Hoosiers. Actually, Michelle, basketball lover. Movie Hoosiers? Okay. She's giving me a nod. Yeah, I'm imagining this packed building, people just screaming angrily, you know? Like they wanted to get rid of Gene Hackman, just like they want to get rid of
everyone in the Packers
organization.
Yes.
And instead it gets salvaged last minute. Is there anything to that? Is there anything to that timing?
It kind of seems like there's something to that timing. Yeah. I mean, now I will say, the meeting yesterday, the shareholders meeting in Green Bay, started at like 11 o'clock, which is before all this came out.
Oh, so it was ongoing.
It was ongoing.
Did it happen during the meeting?
I think that they, before the meeting even started, knew they were in a pretty good spot, would be my guess.
Okay. Is there any video of this meeting?
No. I was really looking forward to it. I was hoping there would be a live stream of some sort. Now, they had, some reporters there. I think Schneidman from The Athletic was there. And, obviously most of the conversation was about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But that was when things started to really trickle out from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network and Adam Schefter as well. And it looked like early on yesterday that they were headed in a good spot.
Yeah, that's too bad. No, I mean, that's great.
Thank you.
So you've got Rodgers and Davante Adams are basically like Jordan and Pippen this year.
Well,
this is it.
Well, I don't know about Adams because, they were in contract negotiations, and that just totally fell apart the other day, apparently. That was the report that they were so far apart that they weren't even talking anymore. And then all of a sudden, Schefter comes out yesterday and says now that Aaron Rodgers is back in the fold, Davante Adams is open to a contract extension. He'll talk about anything they want to talk about. So I don't know about Davante Adams. It does kind of feel like this could be it for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And, Schefter went into the details of kind of the agreement that the Packers and Aaron Rodgers have come to. And a few of those issues that were addressed are the 2023 year in Rodgers' contract, so not this next year, but in 2023. The last one in his current deal would be voided, no tags allowed in the future. The Packers would agree to review Rodgers' situation at the end of the season. Rodgers' contract would be adjusted with no loss of income to give the Packers more cap room, and mechanisms put in place to address Rodgers' issues with the team. So basically, that's a long way of saying Aaron Rodgers is going to have a lot of control over his future after this year, is basically what that means.
So the most likely scenario is that they trade him away for the last year, or what is now the last year of his deal, 22, somewhere else.
Yes. I would say that is the most likely outcome. Now,
what's the percentage chance that they can convince him that he should want to stay longer?
I think at best right now it's probably 50-50 would be my guess.
50-50.
At best.
That's optimistic.
Well, at best. I think that's best case scenario. They're probably at this point now, with the roster they've got coming back, they're probably going to be pretty good. So, there's always that part of it, too. And that's what a lot of people in the Aaron Rodgers discussion could never really get past. Like, all right, really? You're going to go to Denver, and they've got some nice young pieces, and they've got a good defense that's now much older, but they've got a good defense. But your best chance to win a Super Bowl is by far in Green Bay, where you are. So I don't think that's necessarily going to change over the course of the next year. Maybe it does. Jerry Jeudy takes off. Guy like Aaron Rodgers throwing you the ball, in pretty good shape. But I think the likelihood is this is the last year in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers, and then they're going to move on to Jordan Love. He's going to move on elsewhere, would be my guess. I guess there's a chance that the issues that they have, which I don't know how you solve the issues that he has with the team without just firing people. Like, that's the issue.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how you work through that at this point.
If he's like just incredible this year, let's say they win it all. Or maybe he's incredible and they're so close they come up just short. And it's basically like he basically gives the mandate like it's him or me. Man,
I don't know. Like if this would be another good situation to have an owner where you're like, okay, yeah, see you, buddy. Aaron Rodgers is coming back.
Bring everybody into that field house and let's talk it out.
Let's get the entire community in there.
Yeah.
See if they can figure this out.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. Now, he was all over the place last year on the Pat McAfee show and doing all these media appearances all over the place. This is going to be all people talk about with Aaron Rodgers all year. It's not going to be about what's happening on the field. It's going to be like, hey, so what about next year? You staying next year? You going to be traded next year? What's going on? So I think he might be under the assumption that he can address that to start the season, and that's going to be it. It's not going to be it. That's going to be all people talk about all season long with him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, it'll come. It's always in everybody's mind. I don't think he's going to have to be fielding that question weekly, right? I mean, well, I mean, what's going to change? I mean, week to week, here and there, I'm sure, but I don't think it'll be like this constant barrage. I mean, what's going to change?
I don't know.
I mean, it's going to be reviewed at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's going very poorly this year and they're losing, then that probably makes it an even easier deal. Pack know that they need to probably just move on to the next guy, and he wants to win somewhere. But they're not going to lose that much.
I wouldn't think so. They should be pretty good. And we were talking about, and we got more to say on the show about the power rankings that people have come out with and maybe where the Tennessee Titans fit in that fold. Like, it was interesting because a lot of these power rankings have come out before Rodgers made his decision to come back. And, I've seen the Packers anywhere from number 3 to like number 16 because they have no clue about Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I voted him 3.
Yeah.
Until I know he's leaving, then that's what, to me, they are. Yeah, if you vote. But 16 still is weird to me because I think I would go lower with, maybe. I guess that's. Yeah,
I would go lower.
It'd probably be like 20, right?
There's a pretty big difference between Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love.
No doubt. Well, I mean, we don't even know what the difference is.
I can tell you there's a pretty big difference.
I mean, they do have a good roster. So I suppose I wouldn't go much lower than like 20, I guess. But, yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to be the Houston
5.
Texans.
Right. I mean, they're not in Lions, Texans, Jags territory. But top 5 for sure with him, so. For sure you have this year to enjoy. So
yes.
That's good.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, with Rodgers back in Green Bay, are they the biggest threat to Tampa Bay in the NFC? Is it the L.A. Rams, who continue to get a lot of love out there? People love the L.A. Rams, even with Cam Akers going down as well. Is it Green Bay? Is it L.A.? Is it somebody else that's the biggest threat to Tampa Bay in the NFC? How would you answer that?
I would say Green Bay. I mean, Akers is a big loss for the Rams. He just is. I'm a fan of the Rams. Like I love their defense. I do believe that Stafford is a big upgrade over Goff. I don't know how big, but big. But man, he's never had a running game. That's the crazy thing about Stafford. He's never had a running game, and he was about to have a running game, and now he's still going to never have a running game. I mean, Darrell Henderson's good, but like that was a nice tandem. Yeah. Akers. So, yeah, that changes it to me. I might have said Rams. Probably. I think I still would have gone Packers. I think it's clearly the Packers. I mean, you can just remove the Saints from the discussion now.
Apparently.
I think the Niners could be back in that mix this year, with a healthy defense. Seahawks are – I mean, that whole division is
it's pretty good.
It's pretty darn good, but I don't know. I can't think of anyone else who I would put in that range.
Yeah, I mean, it's
certain. I don't care.
Nobody from the NFC East?
Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, someone will have the Cowboys in there.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
What did Tannenbaum – well, what did he have? Like the
Tannenbaum said that they were the biggest threat to Tampa Bay.
My goodness. What is going on out here?
You buying that?
No.
Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, the biggest threat to the Bucs this year.
And they're all going in the Hall of Fame.
They got to play defense at some point, right? There's got to be a little bit of defense that gets played.
They're kind of like the Titans of the NFC. Like, they completely remade that thing. So, I mean, it could be a lot better.
I mean, it could be a whole lot worse.
Well, right. You said it couldn't be.
Yes, it could not be a whole lot worse.
Right. So, I mean, I imagine they'll have some defensive improvement. You have a healthy Dak. You got Zeke in good shape. I mean, you could be – I wouldn't be surprised at all if they won the NFC East. That'd probably be my pick, but I don't. I think they're 5th, 6th at best in the pecking order.
This will be Aaron Rodgers' 17th season with the Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre got to 16. Bart Starr got to 16. Nobody's ever gotten to 17.
Wow.
Is that not weird? Like, doesn't it feel like Brett Favre and Bart Starr were around the Packers a lot longer than Aaron Rodgers?
Well, he sat for a few years, so that's probably part of why that's the case. I mean, I don't know if you think I'm old enough to remember Bart Starr playing.
No,
I don't.
No, I'm not saying that.
But yeah, it felt like Favre was there for forever and ever.
You don't sound excited about that.
Man, one of my least favorite athletes of all time, and actually making himself even less likable as he goes.
Brett Favre.
Kill, Mississippi.
Yeah, Mississippi. Oh boy,
the town of Kill.
Yeah. A lot of interesting names, both in Mississippi and in Michigan, we found out here on the show.
There's Kill, Mississippi, and Hell, Michigan.
Yes.
Also Bad Axe, Michigan.
And Climax.
And Climax. Well, that's the homeland.
That's right. A lot's going on in the states that begin with an M. So, yeah, Aaron Rodgers back with the Green Bay Packers. I was a happy man yesterday. We'll see what happens on the Davante Adams front as well, because let me tell you, if they can't get it worked out with him and he becomes an unrestricted free agent, that'd be a nice bidding war for Davante Adams out there.
I guess I'm wondering why this makes Adams eager to I mean,
I don't know.
Like, it's, okay, great. He feels good about this year, but then he's still going to – if he's going to do a long-term deal, he's doing that to catch passes from Jordan Love.
Right. I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Just feels like, okay, you guys got your crap together at least for this, so maybe I trust you a little more?
Maybe so. I mean, that's what Schefter said, but, like, according to Schefter a couple of days ago, the Packers weren't willing to, like, entertain the idea of making him the highest-paid receiver in the league. And you're like, okay, well, he probably deserves to be the highest-paid receiver in the league. He's pretty good.
You should probably entertain that idea.
You probably should.
What's up with this dude?
I don't know, man. Well, this is the way the Packers have done things for a long time, and they've never been able or willing to pay all that much money to these players, and they've got this old business model way of doing things. And it's 2021, and the allure of playing in Green Bay and Lambeau Field and the history that comes with that does not mean the same thing that it used to mean. And they're having a very difficult time, I think, coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
That's part of...
Well, they've done pretty well,
sure,
considering all that. It helps when you have generational quarterback after generational quarterback.
It does. It does. We'll see what that means for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers this year. But the saga finally over that began on draft night in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay for at least one more season. And speaking of the NFL, training camps, all of them underway today in the NFL, including the Tennessee Titans. We'll get to that coming up next. Taking your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth are with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's a beautiful day here in Nashville, Tennessee. Training camp. Titans training camp officially underway today. The players will report today on the field tomorrow for training camp for the Tennessee Titans. And Mike Vrabel kicking things off today, I think around 11:30 is when he is scheduled to have his season opening / training camp opening press conference today. And it's going to be interesting. I know that Mike Vrabel is a big fan of talking about injuries. I'm sure that those will be brought up a few times today with Caleb Farley and Bud Dupree and what exactly the plan is there for the Titans. And I'm sure that Vrabel will be very forthcoming on that. That will be very entertaining to watch later today, coming up at 11:30. But training camp is officially here, Joe Rexrode. It's exciting times.
It is. And to actually have, I think this is the first in-person press conference with Vrabel since, I'm pretty sure, since we crowded around him in Indianapolis. And, yeah, it has to be. And we're asking about Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So, he had some actually kind of funny things to say that
Was that
day.
before or after the FaceTime with Julian Edelman?
That was before the FaceTime.
Okay.
But that, coming away from Indy, that was the Combine. So that was like early February of 20. And coming away from that, I felt pretty good about, you felt they were much stronger in sort of like public, I don't know if support's the word, but praise of Henry than Tannehill. But I still came away from that thinking they were going to, try to get deals done with both. And they did, which was why the 2020 offseason was not all bad, because those deals were both very good for the Titans. But that's the last time Vrabel talked with us in person. So this will be great. And, yes, he's going to give us a full breakdown of everybody's injury. He's going to give us name by name who got vaccinated, who didn't,
right,
how long they took, what he had to say to get them vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. You're going to miss the
Full
Zoom chat.
details.
The Zoom chat may be a thing of the past now. Or at least
maybe.
A little bit more limited.
Yeah, I think they may utilize it some in certain situations. And, in situations it can be handy. It's just that I just hate it. It's probably an irrational hatred for the Zoom interviews. But they are doing – it's interesting because they're doing an Olympic-type thing here. Speaking of the Olympics, shout out to Teresa Walker covering some hoops. Yep. Watching the basketball robot in Tokyo, and she said she's as mad as I am about power chords, so she's listening to the show from Tokyo. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa. We appreciate that.
We'll get her on when she gets back from Tokyo. I guess AP's got all kinds of money. We should see if she can just call in from Tokyo.
Yeah, might as well.
Just have to time it out. What time is it in Tokyo right now?
That's a good question.
Really early or late?
Or really late, right? Time right now. Okay,
It is 8:19 p.m.
Okay. That's actually not bad. Like after dinner, we can get Teresa on the phone from Tokyo. Let's see if we can do it.
I'm cool with it.
So the Titans are doing like a mixed zone. That's what they call these sometimes insane interview situations at the Olympics. Basically, at the Olympics, there are press conferences at times, but they have this thing called the mixed zone, and it's a different type of thing at different venues. But it's like the athletes are on one side, and they have to walk through the mixed zone to get to the locker room.
Yeah.
The reporters are on this side. You better be there ready, and you better grab them, and you can grab someone and have a one-on-one for 20 minutes if they're cool with it. But it's once they go through the mixed zone, that's it. Okay? So
I know some players in the past that would sprint through that mixed zone if that was the case.
Oh, no doubt.
Just take off running.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And these mixed zones at times can be just a zoo, like at the track when people trying to talk to Usain Bolt. My God. We won't have any scenes like that, but we actually got an email from Kim Smith, who does a great job with the Titans PR, about the mixed zone. So we're going to have 4 to 6 players in the mixed zone, okay? On any given day. It may be a starter, a vet, a role player, a rookie. You have to be separated by 6 feet. So even with we're vaccinated, we've all been tested, there's still going to be the separation of 6 feet. But at least it's, hey, can we have a conversation over here? Versus last year when it's, Here are the 3 people on Zoom. Terry McCormick, you're up. And then the interview's over.
In fairness, I think we got Robo Jim Wyatt last year, maybe a little bit more than Robo Terry McCormick.
We did, but I feel like Jim Wyatt's Robo was cooler than McCormick's. McCormick was just like coming straight from Jupiter, Jim Wyatt, like you still sometimes would you could hear kind of tell what he was saying. It was just the word would be stretched out.
Yes.
So hopefully we
love you, Jimmy.
Largely we do. We love both of you guys. Hopefully that's largely over, but at least there's a little bit. And look, I mean, for people who want to follow this team, there's going to be more stories and like more different stories. The more that you have access, and this is still nothing like locker room, but it's an improvement.
Speaking of Mike Vrabel, we will have Mike Vrabel on the show tomorrow here at 7 o'clock here on Robby and Rexrode. So looking forward to Titans head coach Mike Vrabel joining us tomorrow at 7 o'clock here on the program. And, Joe, I'm interested to see what he's got to say today. Obviously, we know, and we were joking about it earlier, I mean, he's not going to go into much detail with the injuries, and I'm sure, based on the approach that we've seen out of Mike Vrabel, guys that are kind of on the borderline injury-wise, he's going to be cautious this time of year. And we've seen it in the past with Corey Davis. Corey Davis tweaks a hamstring. Corey Davis is out for a lot of training camp. Mike Vrabel has shown that he has got, the bigger picture in mind, and trying to get people healthy by the time you're playing actual games is more important to him. So if guys like Caleb Farley and Bud Dupree, there's any question to them whatsoever, I don't think Mike Vrabel is going to put them out there at this point, would be my guess.
Yeah. Well, and based on, we have preseason games also, a big change, and it's incredible to be excited about preseason football, and yet I
never thought I would be, but I really am.
Someone tweeted this yesterday. It's Steelers-Cowboys Hall of Fame game, is that right? And so this is the last weekend with no football on TV.
That's pretty crazy.
Until February.
February. I'm really excited about preseason football, and I will watch. I can't say that I'll watch every preseason Titans snap, because I will say the last preseason game, about the third quarter, you're like, oh boy, what am I doing here? But I'm excited about the Titans preseason. I will probably make it 2 possessions into the Hall of Fame game between the Steelers and Cowboys, and I'll be like, okay, seen enough of this one. Let's move on and do something else, would be my guess.
Yeah, as soon as the starters are out, and I feel like more and more coaches are playing their key guys less and less in the preseason. It's kind of too bad for the Titans that their one preseason home game is the last preseason game.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be probably slim pickings there. But the trade-off is that they have 9 actual home games this year in this beautifully designed and executed 17-game season.
Which means they'll only have 8 home games next year.
That's true.
Yeah.
Unless who knows? Maybe the NFL will just expedite 18 games. Let's just go there.
You think Derrick Henry plays 1 snap in the preseason? There's no reason.
That's a fair question.
There's no reason for him to play a preseason game, right?
That's a fair question. I don't know. That's a good question. I wouldn't be shocked if the answer is no. Sean McVay yesterday was like, because he was asked about Darrell Henderson. He's like, he will not play in the preseason. Forget it.
I would say probably not.
But yeah, Vrabel, there's going to be, there's a lot of storylines once we get through the injury and vaccination questions today. There are a lot of storylines.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. I think maybe Vrabel will be excited to, to have an in-person presser. And whatever he doesn't answer today, we promise that we will get it out of him tomorrow at 7 a.m.
That's right. 7 o'clock, he will be very revealing here on the show. We're looking forward to that.
It's an all-injury vaccination interview with Vrabel tomorrow.
Yes, I'm sure it will be. Sure, he would very much be looking forward to that. I don't know. It's interesting to think about this team as they sit here in training camp, because I think largely what the offense is going to be. Like, my biggest question offensively, other than the tight end position, which we talked about yesterday, is how quickly can Tannehill find that chemistry with Julio Jones, right? Timing's important. They're 2 veteran guys. I don't anticipate it's going to take all that long. Who knows? They could have been throwing the last few weeks. I have no clue what Ryan Tannehill's been doing the last couple of weeks. But how quickly can you develop that chemistry with Julio Jones? That's why I do think you'll probably see Julio Jones and Ryan Tannehill at least get some snaps in the preseason to see if that timing is there and try to work on that. But, like, other than that, I think offensively, especially at skill positions, you're pretty confident in what you have, and I think Vrabel will be pretty careful with that group throughout the preseason and in training camp as well.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, the chemistry, the quarterback-receiver chemistry, you can't have too much work on that.
Yep.
And it is so different than you know what Derrick Henry's going to do.
Yeah.
He knows the scheme. He's got the same offensive line, basically, and he's going to be ready to go. But Tannehill, how much do you value Tannehill and Julio working on that chemistry with people trying to tackle him? I'm still going to guess not much. You know, like their first preseason games in Atlanta, is there going to be, there's going to be a lot of Julio in that game? Is there going to be like no Julio in that game?
Tribute video for Julio Jones? Preseason in Atlanta?
I would hope so, right?
I mean, it's
but
a
it's a
preseason
game. But like the Titans went there. Mariota was still the QB, so that was 19, which means the way the rotation is, the next time they play that division, the Falcons will be here.
Correct.
So it's a long – I mean,
Julio Jones is not going to be playing by the time.
Gone. Yeah. This is your only chance to give Julio a video. And also Kanye West is living in that stadium.
I know. I saw that.
So there's a lot going on in there.
There is. Do we think Kanye is still going to be living there by the time the Titans go in for a preseason game?
Could Kanye contribute to the tribute video?
Maybe so.
Spice it up a little bit. That could be sweet.
Maybe so. We'll see what happens on that front. We'll continue the discussion on the Titans when we come back, including – has the disrespect of the Titans already begun before the season even starts? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And Titans training camp opening up today. Every NFL training camp is at least opening up today with players coming on the field tomorrow. So football season is officially here, and the NFL is now underway. And with that, Joe Rexrode, the power rankings have started to come out as well. And I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time throughout the preseason talking about stuff like this. But your colleagues at The Athletic have come out with their power rankings 1 through 32 in the NFL. And I was very curious to see not only where the Tennessee Titans would end up, but maybe where a team in their division would end up as well. Because you and I have spent a lot of time on this show discussing the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans and how each team is viewed and perceived league-wide. And I'll be honest with you, Joe, the power rankings at The Athletic line up exactly where I thought they would line up, and that is the Indianapolis Colts getting a lot of love, even more love than the Tennessee Titans. At number 10, league-wide, at theathletic.com's power rankings, the Indianapolis Colts. The Tennessee Titans coming in at number 11, so behind Indianapolis. We've spent a lot of time talking about the Titans and the Colts. I view the Titans as the pretty clear favorite in the AFC South, but it's apparent that league-wide, that's not necessarily the case. So my question to you is this. What do you think of the Colts in the Athletic.com's poll being ranked higher than the Tennessee Titans? And are perhaps maybe we here locally giving way too much love, way too much respect to the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, are we big homers? I mean, you got to be able to, turn the light on yourself here. So 31 people voted. By the way, I was one of them.
Yeah.
By the way, I did not vote the Titans 11.
Colts, yes.
I did not vote them behind the Colts either. So if you took my homer vote out of it, where would the Titans be?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some people who clearly have doubts. And I don't have a problem having doubts. I mean, look, you can be a person who says, I totally believe in Carson Wentz, and he's going to reunite with Frank Reich, and it's going to be amazing, and I think the Titans' defense is going to stink. You can believe that. I personally am sort of in between on Wentz. I think he'll be better than he was last year. I think he's in a better situation. I also think he's, to some extent, a damaged player. We'll see. And I think the Titans' defense, it's hard. I think they're going to be better. I don't know how much better, but I think a lot of their offense. And look, the bottom line is last year they had a bad defense and they won the division. And Phillip Rivers actually had a
pretty good
outstanding year statistically for the Colts. He did Phillip Rivers it up late in a few games, which you could say was the difference in the division if you want to look at it that way. You could say some of the mistakes he made against the Jags and the Browns and what was it, the Steelers? It was the Steelers, right?
Yep.
Late in the season.
Yep.
And there's 3 games where if he doesn't make those mistakes, they win those games. But then, again, you can look at a lot of things, good and bad. You could also say the Titans could have been 8-8. I mean, it's close, but I did think that this year the Titans would get a little more respect in that. Now, there's also another vote or, another thing to come with actually picking division winners. And
right.
I think remind me, was I one of 3 who picked the Titans to win? Is that right?
Yes.
I was one of 3 last year who picked the Titans to win the division. One of 3 who was right, by the way. But I don't know. Maybe we're homers.
Well,
is that the problem?
Well, and we discussed earlier, I would expect that the number of people picking the Titans to win the division this year will grow. A lot of that based on Julio Jones and him coming into the offense. But what this tells me, Joe Rexrode, is I still think Indy is going to win that poll. I think there's going to be a lot of people voting on Indianapolis to win this division.
Yeah, now.
Which, by the way, I'm not saying it's crazy to think Indy has a chance to win the division. I think they do. But I would give the nod to the Titans, would be my vote.
Right. I would give the nod to the Titans. I do give the nod to the Titans. And I would think that they might be picked to win this year by more people. But, yeah, you're probably right. Now, will it be more for the Titans than 3? I would think so. I would think it would be pretty close. And that's fine. I mean, there's so many questions. The Colts have the ultimate question, and that's my difference maker, is that I know what the Titans have at the most important position, and it's really good. And I think it's better than the Colts. Now, there's other things about the Colts that are clearly better than the Titans, but that, to me, is really what it comes down to. Also, I look at the Colts, and we had to do this thing, I think last week or the week before, on if you could pick one player from a division rival to have on your team, who would it be? And, Zach Kiefer, who covers the Colts for us, was like, yeah, Julio Jones. Hey, Chris Ballard does things his way. He doesn't like first-round picks. He doesn't like spending a lot of money. It's gone well for him. I would still make the case that he should have maybe looked into that, because think about them with him. If Julio is going to be Julio, think about them with him.
They'd be the clear favorite at that point. And, we talked about it at the time. I can't really believe that they weren't more serious into that. Julio Jones everybody talks about Indy's roster, and they've got a lot of really good pieces. Don't get me wrong, but still at wide receiver, I look at them and I'm like, all right, you've got an aging T.Y. Hilton, who's still a good player, but he's not the same player that he used to be. You've got Pittman there, who I think is a very good player. But other than that, there's not much there at wide receiver. And you talk about going all in on a quarterback, and I agree with you. Carson Wentz will probably be better this year than he was last year in Philadelphia. The line is better. He's just set up better for success here in Indy than he was in Philadelphia. But still, like you would think, bringing him in, you want to maximize his ability and give him as many weapons as possible. And I still look at that wide receiver room in Indy and think, yeah, there's not much there that scares you if you're any team. Now, granted, a wide receiver with, a functional pulse last year scared the Titans based on how they covered and how they were able to rush the passer. So I understand that. But largely, from a league-wide perspective, there's not a receiver on the Colts that just scares you at this point. And T.Y. Hilton, I don't think is any longer that guy. I mean, he's not the same guy. He's still very good, not the same guy he used to be.
Right, and then, of course, you have big pickup to get Eric Fisher, but no real worry. I mean, that's a big question. Some of when he's back from the Achilles, I mean, that's obviously a very serious and long-term injury. And they got, Dayon Odeyingbo from Vanderbilt. I love the pick, but also a guy coming off an Achilles and a guy who's got to be important. Now, I like their offensive line a lot, love their backs, and Darius Leonard is fantastic. I mean, I like their defense a lot, but I don't think that they're overwhelming in the back end at all. And I look at specifically that matchup, Titans-Colts, the Titans will probably complete a few passes on them.
So I have to think when people are looking at the Titans and, the power rankings like this are coming out and they're finishing 11th in the league and they're behind the Colts, I have to think a lot of that is the defense, right? I mean, it was a bad defense last year. There's no way around that, and we know that. We've talked so much about that here on the show. But I look at the defense this year. I don't know how you really know. And maybe the uncertainty of it is what's leading to some of this as well. But the offense on paper appears to be so good. The defense is a huge question mark, but nobody really knows what it's going to be. You've got 6 new starters coming in. So that to me is the only, I guess, justification for the Titans being as low as they are on this. But that's such a difficult part of this to figure out even here locally is because nobody has any clue what this defense is going to look like with how many different pieces there are there. I mean, even Shane Bowen, this is his first technical year of defensive coordinator, but the roster is so different. Like, we have no idea what Shane Bowen is yet at this point.
Right. Yeah, and then again, when those two, really the two key ads would be your first-round pick and would be your high-price free agent.
Yep.
And they're not on the field to start camp. So, yeah, look, if I totally understand any skepticism about the Titans' defense. I think that there are some things that are more reliable than those two players and their injuries. I mean, I feel like Dupree's going to be fine to play. We'll see if he can play to that salary. But Autry is a signing. I feel like that made them better. Jenkins is a solid corner.
Yep.
And Jayon Brown coming back is, I kind of like Taylor Lewan on the other side of the ball. I think people are missing a little bit how important that is. Jayon Brown makes plays. The guy is an incredibly smart football player who just has a feel for the game, makes plays. Missed him a lot. Not that their defense was good with him, but he still made some big plays, even in the context of a struggling defense. So there's some things, and then you got some players who, if you go by total track record, expect Kevin Byard to be good. Expect Rashaan Evans, we'll see. Harold Landry is a good player. I mean, they're not hopeless. There are some consistent things and then some things they're bringing in. And then, I think a lot of this is like Jeffrey Simmons. Is he ready to be a great player?
Right. Yeah, that's a big question mark. And I will say, the Titans on this list still a playoff team. They are number 6 in the AFC. So you've got, obviously, the Chiefs at number 1 total in the power rankings. The Buffalo Bills at 3. The Baltimore Ravens at 4. They're number 4 on this list, which I don't
That
know
is
that
really
I buy
high.
the Ravens at number 4 on the list.
I don't either.
You've got Cleveland at number 7. So that would be number 4 in the AFC, and then Indy and Tennessee. Those are your top 6 AFC teams in this power rankings.
So for me, and I apologize because I filled this thing out last week and I don't remember exactly where I had the Titans. I think I had them like 7th overall.
Yeah.
I think that's right. 6th or 7th, but I had them 3rd in the AFC. Chiefs, Bills, Titans. I mean, but I think the Titans, well, I would put the Bills there too. I would put the Bills probably as a clear 2, but not a 2 with any distance between them and the rest. Titans, Ravens, Browns, Colts. That's a pack that's very close to each other. I think the Titans are better than the Ravens too. I know they just beat them, but man, that offensive line, Orlando Brown Jr.'s out. He's in KC. You lost your pass rushers. I do like Bateman and Watkins as additions for Lamar Jackson.
LA Chargers at number 13 in this poll. 7-9 a year ago. Lots of love for Justin Herbert. Number 13 for the LA Chargers. They're a very popular pick this year. People pretty high on the Chargers.
They are. And let's not forget Joey Bosa, Derwin James. Weren't there last year, are back this year. I like Herbert. Yeah, they're a very trendy team to watch, kind of coming out of nowhere in the AFC. Not sure I totally buy it, but they do have pretty good roster.
So are the Titans being disrespected in this power ranking poll by theathletic.com? Titans coming in at number 11, one spot behind the Indianapolis Colts at number 10. Is that disrespectful for the Titans? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Tennessee Titans training camp opening today for the Titans and breaking down the power rankings that have come out from theathletic.com. Indianapolis at number 10, the Titans at number 11 in the power rankings. So the Colts getting some love. The Titans just behind the Colts in the power rankings at number 11 at theathletic.com. Is that disrespectful? Should the Titans be ahead of the Colts? Let us know on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is going to be, I think, a continual conversation. And look, I've heard Jared talk about this. There are a lot of Titans fans that feel this way too. Indianapolis feels like they traditionally get a lot of love. I mean, it feels like they very well-respected organization, deservedly so. They've been very good for the most part for the last 20 years. Now you've got Carson Wentz coming in, and we've talked about him. We don't really know what version of Carson Wentz we're going to see. And to your point, like Phillip Rivers last year, he's pretty good for the most part. He did have his moments at the end of some games, but for the most part, Phillip Rivers was pretty good last year. The question is, can Carson Wentz look anything like the MVP version of Carson Wentz that we saw a few years ago? I have my doubts on that. I think he will be better this year. I don't think he's going to look anything like that. And I guess the question is, like, what level of Carson Wentz does he need to play at in order to make Indianapolis a true contender in the AFC? That's the question to me, because I like a lot of their pieces defensively. I think Jonathan Taylor is a very good running back that Indianapolis has. He came into his own at the end of last year after struggling to begin the season. So there's a lot of things there that you like about Indy. I just wonder, like, what version of Carson Wentz do we have to see in order for them to truly be considered one of the upper echelon teams in the AFC? And I think it's going to have to be at a pretty high level. Yeah. I'm just not convinced he can get there.
Right. I mean, if it's 2016-17, then
they'll be in good shape.
Then yeah, they're right there. I mean, the bottom line is we have no idea, and I think he's probably one of the most interesting players in the whole league this year in terms of just not knowing what to expect, and a player who has been great and been awful at the most important position. But the awful, how much of it was the awful around him, the just terrible offensive line and so many other issues? Probably a fair amount, but the thing is, of course, that tends to, especially with a quarterback who's had multiple serious injuries, tends to affect performance. I mean, I think we saw it with Marcus Mariota, and he didn't go through nearly the stuff Carson Wentz has gone through, although that nerve stuff was pretty scary and strange. But I think we saw that. I think Marcus Mariota was a different player in the pocket in 2019 than he was in 2016, clearly. So, but that also doesn't mean that I mean, everybody's different too. Carson Wentz could get past all that and be really good again.
So how much of the Titans being at number 11 in this power ranking do you think is Ryan Tannehill? And maybe the continued lack of appreciation for what he is, what he's done in this Titans offense? Because we talked about that with Jeremy Fowler and his polls with executives and coaches and players, and how Tannehill was outside of the top 10 there. You know, I think it depends on who you ask around the league that covers the league, but I'm sure that there are people who cover this league that view Ryan Tannehill very similarly to some other executives and coaches around the league, and that is, he's fine, but he's not a guy that elevates anybody around him. How much of where the Titans sit in these power rankings at number 11 do you think is a reflection on how people view Ryan Tannehill?
I mean, if you're going to talk about disrespect for the Titans, you got to talk about disrespect for Ryan Tannehill,
That's right?
They go hand in hand. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, look, I'm waiting for, like, our Mike Sando is going to do, the quarterback tiers. I think that usually comes out in August. Is that right?
Yep.
Usually sometime here in this next month. I mean, I'm waiting for the glowing quote from somebody about Tannehill.
Where do you think he ends up? I think he ends up in Tier 3. I think he should be Tier 2.
Well, that's exactly what it was last year.
Yep.
And I would agree. He should be Tier 2. But, yes, he'll probably be Tier 3. And, again, I'm waiting for somebody to say something other than, well, Derrick Henry, play action, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't watch him much, by the way. Blah, blah, blah. But, yes, that's part of this for sure. There's no doubt.
Yep, and I wonder, offensively, everything looks great on paper, too. Do people care that Arthur Smith is gone and they've got a new offensive coordinator in it? Like, I wonder how deep of a dive people take into this. Probably not much. I would imagine that you look at that roster on offense, and even, your skeptics of the Titans, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, it's hard to be overly skeptical of that offense. Like, you've got to know it's going to be pretty good.
Well, but I think that people who are actually informed on teams have to look at what Arthur Smith did, know that he's the Falcons head coach now. 2 years after people were like, gosh, that guy's getting the OC job, huh? Probably tells you something about the job he did and how people feel about him. So anybody really paying attention, I would think, would also be factoring that in, and that's fair. I mean, that's a lot on Todd Downing and a lot to live up to there.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got a texture that says, Indy is the Cowboys of the AFC. They suck and are ridiculously overrated.
No, they're not the Cowboys of the AFC. The Steelers are probably the Cowboys of the AFC, right?
Probably, but at least they get to the playoffs all the time.
Okay, so, I'm saying purely in terms of
reputation.
Whatever they do, they will have the attention. But you're right, they have actually have performed. But the Colts have too.
Right.
I mean, what have the Colts done? The Colts have been good. They bottom out and get luck and are able to go straight from Manning to Luck. But they've played well. Who would be the Cowboys in terms of disappointing, and yet people talk about them all the time in the AFC?
I'm not sure that team exists.
I'm not sure that team exists either. Now, if the Patriots go into hibernation and Belichick retires, maybe they could become that team. But they're just, first of all, you can't replicate what Jerry Jones is, right? So that automatically just puts a big megaphone on everything the Cowboys are. Maybe the Raiders.
Maybe.
Like a team that we talk about all the time, even if they don't really deserve it, I guess.
To be clear, also, we're not saying that Indy is not good or that they suck, as the texter points out. I think with the Titans winning the division last year, with the additions that they've made, I think they're the favorite. But I'm not under the illusion that Indy's like a bad football team or something like that.
Oh, they're a very good football team. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I think it's going to be a very good race for the AFC South. You might need to be 13-4 to win the AFC South, or even 14-3. Probably not.
14-3 would be a heck of a bar.
12-5 do it. Will 12-5 win the AFC South?
That's a good question.
It might.
I think there's a good chance 12-5 would win.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that, 12-5, 11-6. I think they're both very good.
Well, as we found out last year, also, the AFC is pretty loaded. There are a lot of teams last year. There was teams that went 9-7 last year that did not make the playoffs. Pretty good league last year. I wonder, is it going to be that good again? Maybe. I don't know. My guess would be probably not, but it was pretty good last year, loaded from top to bottom.
You can go through the AFC, and the Dolphins, I think, are just getting ignored by people.
I think so, too.
They're not bad. The Patriots, could they make a big jump? The quarterback's the question, but they're getting their defense back. I think the Steelers are being ignored. Roethlisberger's in shape. Maybe he's got more to him. Burrow's, and the Bengals, look, the Raiders aren't terrible. You can go through there's a lot of, the Broncos are intriguing. The Chargers are a trendy pick.
Those odds on the Broncos, I bet, come down pretty significantly today.
Now that we know that
there was one point they were number 2 in the AFC West behind Kansas City.
That was half Aaron Rodgers half on their team.
I think
odds.
So. Yeah. I think those are probably coming down today.
Probably because Drew Lock is widely regarded the worst starter in the NFL.
Yeah. Number 32 on the list of quarterbacks.
I would still take him over Taysom Hill, but hey, that's just me.
I know one guy who wouldn't. Well, Sean Payton loves him some Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
Let's see how that works.
That'll be interesting. Is that actually going to be a QB battle?
I think so. I think it is. Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill battling it out. Where are they in these power rankings?
That's a good question. I mean, they can't be high, right? They're actually higher than – I know they're way higher than I put them, which means some people really think too much of them. They're 17th.
17. I mean, they've got a good roster. But
they do. They have a good roster.
But Michael Thomas is going to miss, like, the first month of the season at least.
Right. I can't get there. Now, look, Winston, which, again, I'm just disregarding. Taysom Hill can be a little trick play guy. Winston, it's still a lot of – Sean Payton is exactly the coach who says, I can figure this guy out. Because he's got all the arm talent, all the ability. Cut those picks in half. Yeah. Maybe they could be a team that tries to get in the playoffs.
By the way, the team that's right behind the Titans in this power ranking poll on the athletic.com at number 12, the Arizona Cardinals, the team the Titans opened the season with at Nissan Stadium.
Rondale Moore. See, we're all talking about J.J. Watt and Hopkins and Butler, but Rondale Moore makes his NFL debut in this stadium, I always thought he should.
That's right. You're exactly right. Rondale Moore coming to town, baby. That's right.
Boiler up.
When we come back, we will switch gears and get into a little college football, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. What is the next move for the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC now that Texas and Oklahoma appear to be coming to the SEC? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe Rexrode coming back into the studio in style that you can check out live on our Periscope feed, our YouTube feed, and on Twitch as well. Rexrode looking fly today. Titans training camp underway today officially. It's going to be a good day here on Robby and Rexrode. We got taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Going to have Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic Join us later this hour at 7:30 to get into the craziness that is college athletics right now, and Texas and Oklahoma appear to be joining the SEC as well. So we'll get to all that coming up later with Nicole. But, Joe, we've spent the last few days talking about Texas and Oklahoma and what this means for the SEC. But now my attention kind of shifts to, what does this say about the rest of the conferences? Big Ten, the Pac-12, the ACC, and how do they respond to this? Because, as you've pointed out, this is going to mean a lot of money for the SEC if Texas and Oklahoma are officially made a part of the league. And there was speculation last night that maybe even as soon as next year this could get done, and that Texas and Oklahoma could be playing in the SEC as soon as next football season, which, I mean, the more you kind of look at this and the more that things are playing out publicly, I think the more that makes sense to me. I would be, at this point, surprised if Texas and Oklahoma are not a part of the SEC as soon as next year. So it seems that like that's the way it's going, and that's what it's going to be like. How do you respond to that if you're the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the ACC? And Andy Staples at The Athletic is throwing out an interesting idea as well. Then maybe the Big Ten should look at other conferences as they currently stand and think about maybe intervening on their own. What do you think of that, of maybe the Big Ten taking charge and maybe bringing some teams over from the Pac-12 and going that route if you're the Big Ten?
Well, we talked about yesterday, and Staples did as well here, the idea of, okay, so you're the Big Ten now. Oh, well, we got to go to 16, so what schools are we adding just to get us to 16? So now we can split that money up 16 ways instead of 14 ways. You know, why? Why is that necessary? And Staples, I like the way Staples throws this out there. Basically, like, some people are going to think like that, and then there are people who actually use their imaginations and try to just don't let that be bound by convention or what people think you should do. And he's got a really intriguing idea here. I mean, it's stupid to think of the Big Ten with teams on the West Coast. But again, I mean, we've blown geography out of the water, right? So he's got this idea of the Big Ten going to 20. And
so right past 16, just going to 20.
Making it a cool 20, a Big Ten, and I'm sure you could do the logo. You'd have like a little 2. You know, when they added Penn State, they had if you go back and look at their logo when they added Penn State in like whatever that was, 1993 or whatever, when people were like, "What are you doing? College athletics? What?"
Little did they know.
Yeah. Jim Delaney, evil genius. But they had the Big Ten, but then the logo, it looked like an 11. Like there was an 11 in the logo.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's Googleable.
Well, I've seen it.
Yeah. You know, but for people out there who haven't seen it, it might be a fun Google for you. So Big Ten, you make the 1 have a little 2 or something. I don't know. But I'm sure they'd still call it the Big Ten. They could call it like the Rose Bowl League or something.
How many teams do you have to get to before the Big Ten gets renamed, right?
Obviously, there's no number.
Apparently not.
Whatever. I mean, again, if the Big 12 can have 10, then we don't care about the numbers anymore. And the funny thing about that is, like, the Big 12, was created in 1996?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Big 10 at least has, like, been around for a century plus. So I get, like, the brand devotion, but
we've determined we don't care about geography or numbers in college football.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, reason, logic, convenience, fans, et cetera, don't care. But this is an interesting idea because, I mean, and obviously markets are big. Now, it's not like the TV market thing. We've talked about that a lot. But still, if you have big markets, you have big TV markets, that still helps you. And if you went and got the LA schools, he throws out Oregon, Washington. And then, and this is very true from a Big Ten perspective. They still have this, we have a certain, academic level that we expect in the Big Ten. You have to be an AAU member, which Nebraska was, but then Nebraska got kicked out of the AAU. And I honestly can't even tell you anything about the AAU other than it's just a group of universities that think they're awesome.
Yeah.
And so you have to be an AAU member. But of course, if the Big Ten could throw in Cal and Stanford, two elite academic institutions, there'd probably be at least some of the presidents sort of saying, okay, I feel all right about this now. I feel a little bit better about USC Rutgers volleyball on a Tuesday night. That sounds good.
It's going to be great. Looking forward to that.
I mean, I would just, in all seriousness, if something like this were to happen, I mean, I think you'd have to go true East-West and just have a conference tournament on a lot of these sports. Is the only time a lot of these teams see each other, which is stupid. But what is this right now? All this is CEOs out grabbing land, right? Grabbing territory, grabbing money.
Well, and look, things are going to change. Like, there are going to be more teams switching conferences, jumping ship to other conferences. Like Nicole Auerbach, who we're going to have on at 7:30 today here on the show, has just on Twitter, like literally a minute ago, put out a statement from West Virginia that is on their website. And, in the first part of it talks about, the Big 12 and being disappointed that a couple of institutions are not extending their media rights beyond 2025. And then the rest of the statement by West Virginia is basically just pointing out how great they are. And as Nicole points out on Twitter, it feels a lot like a job applicant sending along a copy of their resume. I mean, West Virginia, without saying it in this piece here, is pretty much saying, yeah, we're done with the Big 12. ACC, Big 10, whoever wants us, we're available. So it's going to continue to change and evolve. And look, Big 12 schools are going to be a part of that. I would not be surprised, as you've pointed out, that the Big 12 is probably going to be a thing of the past here very shortly with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. So I think you've got to respond to it in some way, especially if you're a league like the Big Ten. But to your point yesterday, I think adding people just for the sake of adding people is a mistake. You've got to make sure that the brands that you're bringing in help your bottom line. That's what at the end of the day it's about. I don't know that West Virginia's kind of like right on the edge. Are they a team that makes a school that makes that much of a difference in the bottom line if you're the Big Ten? Probably not.
No, I don't think West Virginia in the Big Ten is going to have any traction. West Virginia in the ACC, I mean, golly, if you could have something that makes geographical sense. I know it's way down the list of things you give a crap about, but maybe just think about it. I think Nicole's exactly right. West Virginia is campaigning to the ACC. Please take us. And maybe they will, but again, here's another question with this whole thing is, okay, so the SEC is going to be the best, period. They're going to have the best football conference. They're going to have the most money. Long term for the Big Ten, if schools are getting a $70 million check year after year in the SEC and your Big Ten schools are getting a $58 million check, does it really matter? I mean, other than just the fact that SEC can wave their foam finger in your face?
It's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. But, I mean, the big programs, I mean, that's the split, right? That's the cut from the TV deals or the distribution deals, media deals, the bowls, the postseason stuff. That's all. That's what that is. That's a pool of those things that everyone's going to split equally. But, I mean, if you're Ohio State, you still also have your own revenue streams, that are massive. Texas is still number one, last I saw, in revenue, even though the Big 12 is not, and we know they have their own network. But if you're one of the power programs in the Big 10, is it that big of a deal that the SEC has $10 million more a year to its schools? I
Probably
have
not.
my doubts.
But do they view it that way? I mean,
Ohio
it's one thing athletically, because I agree. I don't think it's a big deal. But as you've pointed out, these decisions are coming from university presidents, and maybe it is viewed that way. That's a lot of money.
Ohio State is they're going to be fine. Ohio State's going to be in the playoff, and they're going to be competing for national championships and recruiting the best players and have the best facilities.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, again, this is where I do feel like on the lower end of these leagues, that's where, and this is what you're going to campaign with these teams that are never going to come close to winning a championship. But okay, yes, there's 7 teams that'll always be better than you in this league. but you can exceed similar profile programs in other leagues for whatever that's worth. Recruiting.
Yeah.
I mean, just having money, that's great. I mean, everybody's getting rich. That's great. I mean, again, the whole thing, each day I wake up and I'm like, I feel ickier about it, but it's happening. So you may as well embrace it.
It absolutely is happening. We'll continue this discussion when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll also get to an interesting idea that Jay Billis has thrown out there about maybe an additional step for the SEC as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Blue Raider Blitz is rolling across the Mid-State to a town near you, led by Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders football head coach Rick Stockstill. This community-wide event will be guaranteed fun for the whole family. Each of the stops will include food, ticket giveaways, and a chance to mix and mingle with MTSU coaching staffs and Lightning as well. Tomorrow's stops include Puckett's in Columbia from noon to 1:30 and Lee Victory Park in Smyrna from 6 to 8 p.m. For more information on where you can attend, head to goblueraiders.com/tour. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic joining us at 7:30. So we'll continue the conversation on Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12, coming to the SEC with her coming up at 7:30. But Joe, I want to play a piece of audio that Jay Billis has come out with from ESPN. We've talked a lot about the SEC, maybe what the trickle-down effect could be on leagues like the Big 10 and the Pac-12 and how they respond to this. But Jay Billis threw out an interesting idea that also involves continued expansion for the SEC as well. Here's what Jay Billis from ESPN had to say.
If you're in this business now, you're going to have to start thinking bigger. Greg Sankey and the SEC are certainly doing that. If I were commissioner of the ACC, one thing I'd be thinking about is approaching the SEC and saying, look at all the natural rivalries we have interconference. Why don't we start thinking about a merger? And because that's what the SEC is going to become. It's going to become the NFL, a junior NFL and junior NBA. And there's no reason why the ACC shouldn't jump in there and take advantage of those natural rivalries and markets. And if I were Jim Phillips, I'd be ringing Greg Sankey's phone saying, how about a merger?
So what do you think of that idea that Jay Billis from ESPN has thrown out of maybe if you're the ACC, picking up the phone, calling the SEC offices and Greg Sankey and getting their thoughts on potentially merging together and becoming one big super conference of the ACC and the SEC together? What would you call it?
Why don't we just merge everybody and just be the sports league, America Sports League? I mean, I don't know. Is that the ACSEC or the SCACC?
I don't know. Southeast
Atlantic Coast. I mean,
I will say from a geographical standpoint, which we know doesn't matter anymore in college sports, a lot of teams in the ACC make a whole lot more sense than Texas and Oklahoma. That's for sure.
They do. Of course, now that we would have an opportunity for a little Boston College, Texas A&M action.
Really get after
it. Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what Jay's saying. Like, hey, everybody should be calling everybody right now and trying to broker something. But I mean, and I don't know. I don't know how that would look. They are both ESPN, so that's the thing. Like the Big Ten, Pac-12 thing is they're basically, they're primarily their deals are primarily Fox,
right?
ACC, SEC, ESPN. So you could make it that. Make it ESPN
League.
Sports League versus the Fox Sports League. Yeah.
Maybe so.
Make it a political thing. There you go. You could, left, right. Let's have it all out.
Just separate everything.
Sure.
Well, I've thought, if Texas and Oklahoma come in, obviously we've talked about that's going to lead to responses from other leagues. But if you're the SEC, do you stop here? Like, do you look to continue to add at this point? If you're Greg Sankey, I mean, this will be 16 teams at this point with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. That, to me, seems like more than enough, but do you keep going if you're Greg Sankey at this point? I don't know how I would feel about a merger with the ACC, and honestly, like at this point, I don't know if I see the ACC doing that. Like I can't envision in the next few weeks like the ACC and saying, all right, you know what, that's it, pack it up. We're just going to become members of the SEC now. I don't anticipate that happening, but if you're the SEC, like, do you stop here? Do you keep going to 20? Like, could there be more on the horizon for Greg Sankey and the SEC?
I mean, I can't sit here and say I feel great about predicting anything, but it's already stretched so thin on the idea of people playing each other in quote-unquote a league, right?
Yeah.
And there was the thing, one of you guys put in our text group, but some barstool slap who said like Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, Florida State, we're gonna be added. That's not happening, by the way. But did a call get made? Why not? I mean, you think about the best brands you could possibly bring in. If you brought in Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, and Clemson, you could basically just say, this is it right here. Although that's overvaluing Michigan. And if you really want to dig in on that, then you should bounce some of the lower end SEC teams and go get like Oregon, But, hey, I don't know. I can't imagine from a competitive standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, and again, you are also splitting the money with more people, the more people you add, that it would go any more than this. This is the number that everyone has looked at. Power 5 has been 65 programs. You have 4 16s. I don't know if it goes to that, but if it does, here you go. SEC's good. They're done, and they are the best.
Yeah.
So I would think no. And the ACC, this also gets into, because the ACC also has a little bit, kind of like the Big Ten, a little bit of this. We have a certain standard with our universities and blah, blah, blah. But that stuff all gets pushed to the side when it comes to the difference between, a couple $100 million more each year or less,
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, do you think it's just a coincidence that Tennessee hired Josh Heupel and then Oklahoma joined the conference, or could it be that they knew this was going to happen? You think a little.
That one was so dumb I muted myself. What?
Do you think that Tennessee knew
Yes.
that Oklahoma was coming, and now they've gotten some inside info from Josh Heupel?
Totally, bro. Tennessee knew all along. No. Who was this?
There's no name.
All right. Tell us your name. I want to shame you on the air.
Look, they've been talking about it for 6 months, apparently.
That's true. That's true. That's right. Maybe. I'm sorry. What is the?
I don't know what that would mean for Josh Heupel, but I mean, he did used to play there and coach there.
He knows Oklahoma inside out. He
does.
Norman, Oklahoma so well, and he's about to get bludgeoned by guys who used to play for Tennessee.
That is true. I do have a few of those floating around in Oklahoma as well. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Aaron texting in. Let's just make the SEC the premier league of college football and relegate/promote each year. What do you think of that? Mm-hmm. You can get dropped out of the SEC. Relegation.
And relegated to what league then?
I don't know.
Like where?
What's the second-tier league?
Well, other leagues have to agree, to be able to house teams that go up or down. So, yeah, what would be the OVC? You get relegated to the OVC?
Maybe.
I mean, like OVC's
Big 12?
It's an FCS league. Yeah, Big 12.
Let's put them back in the Big 12.
If it existed, yeah. AAC. Maybe the AAC. Maybe Memphis does so well that they come up and take an SEC spot, and Vanderbilt has to go back to the AAC. Okay, I don't know.
Maybe so.
I think the relegation
should happen in more sports.
I love it. It's fascinating. Probably easier to do in like pro leagues.
Yeah,
but I'm here for that.
Raymond texting in, is there a model for a 32-team football league that they could follow? As this what happens, there is a model for a 32-team football league. I don't know if you want to follow that one.
Well, I mean, you could just hand select. So Jared and Caroline did this and went through let's name the programs that you think in the next 10 years are relevant enough to potentially get to a playoff.
Yeah.
Right? And it was right around that number.
Yeah.
So, hey, NFL light, everybody else fade away. All these opportunities for kids to play football fade away. Fans fade away.
Yeah.
But sure, there's money. There's TV. There's streaming.
Ron texting in on the merger of the SEC and the ACC, calling it the SACC. You can call it the SAC.
The SAC? Got to sack up and try to win this league.
You imagine? Nice. Alabama. Nice. Here's your SAC champion, the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Oh, boy. So many possibilities.
There are. I mean, college football is a rapidly evolving landscape. That's the new go-to phrase. They put that in the West Virginia statement as well that they come out with on their website. In the ever-evolving landscape that is college athletics.
Yeah.
That's the new go-to phrase.
Yeah.
So when you see a team or a program release a statement and put that in there, that's basically their way of saying, this could change. We might end up in a different conference.
Hey, check us out, though, everybody.
Yeah. I do want to get your thoughts on this real quickly before we get to Nicole coming up here in a couple of minutes. Madden 22 is out, or is about to come out, and the ratings have been released, and we talked about yesterday the wide receivers. The edge rushers have come out, and J.J. Watt is at number 5, a 94 overall. There's Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack, T.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, and J.J. Watt, your top 5. Guys outside of the top 5, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Zadarius Smith, Von Miller, and Cameron Jordan. J.J. Watt, top 5.
All of whom are absolutely flat out better than J.J. Watt now.
Number 5.
Okay, how far does it go?
I just see the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Bud Dupree's not on there either.
I mean, I'm sure the next 5 you'd be like, better than JJ, better than JJ. Hey, prove me wrong, JJ.
That mugshot coming to town.
I mean, I'm sure there are other examples like this where you've got a great player, great career, Hall of Famer at the end who gets too much respect.
A lot of love for J.J. Watt.
But that's pretty extreme.
Could have been a Titan. Didn't work out.
I mean, if they had Brady and J.J. right now, just imagine.
When we come back, we will be joined by Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. We'll get into the ever-changing college football landscape with her as well, get her thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma potentially coming to the SEC. All that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the ever-changing landscape of college sports. Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12, apparently coming to the SEC. And to help us talk about that and more, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. Nicole, what's going on? How we doing?
Hey, hanging in there. It's been a crazier week than I was anticipating. You thought it was going to be closer to a normal preseason, but college football had other ideas.
I would say so. Very, very different ideas on that front. So let's just start with Texas and Oklahoma. Your initial reaction to them announcing that they would be leaving the Big 12, and what do you think about the potential acquisition of Oklahoma and Texas by the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still a little surprised. It was something that wasn't on my radar, wasn't on a lot of people's radar. Took a lot of people by real surprise in this world, especially a lot of people in the Big 12. And I'm still processing it. I mean, I've never been a proponent of mega conferences. So, kind of thinking about those programs being associated with the SEC and a 16-member conference is still something I got to work through. But I think it's going to be very interesting in terms of the future of college sports and what this impacts, the other power conferences and if the Big 12 stays together. And it's just a lot of dominoes that could potentially fall. So, as much as I don't like mega conferences, we're here, we're in that world, and we'll see what the other leagues end up doing to either match it or stay put.
In processing it, Nicole, do you have concerns about long-term, the sport, 10 years, 20 years, the fan reaction to this, the loss of a lot of tradition and just common sense in the pursuit of money?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that sentiment. I think that a lot of people have that whenever realignment happens. Although, in this case, you do get one rivalry game back, but usually you lose a lot of what got us into college sports and got us into college football is those things that make it unique, the campuses, the traditions, the pageantry, the rivalries. I think one of the major bummers about the last round of realignment was when you extend these conferences into different time zones and different states, it makes it harder on fans to be able to go to games, to be able to go to road games, makes it more expensive. And so, those are all things that I think have been really frustrating for fans and those of us who love these sports and love the uniqueness of it, didn't want it to become pro sports, didn't want it to be, driven only by decisions about money. Whereas when you think about it, college sports is a very weird business model. Basically, you're running football and you're running the March Madness men's basketball tournament to subsidize everything else. And it's important to a lot of people in and out, even fans too, that there are all those sports offered, that there are all these opportunities. And I think, to make a decision that is about money and, financial security and the idea of, adding more, big name programs and blue bloods to a conference that already has a bunch of them, it's not going to help the rest of the sport. It's not going to help college football nationally. And I think that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people inside college sports and then a lot of fans of basically everybody else. And I also think there's a lot of fan bases within the SEC that aren't necessarily thrilled by this.
Nicole, so what do you think happens from here with the Big 12? Because as you pointed out on Twitter this morning, West Virginia has come out with a statement, and after you get through, the obligatory, we're disappointed in what's happened with Texas and Oklahoma part of the statement, as you pointed out, it basically reads like a job interview at that point, and it looks like West Virginia is positioning themselves to maybe be swooped up by another league. What do you think of the future of the Big 12? Is it essentially done at this point? Where do you think things go from here with that league?
Well, it's too soon to predict, I think, because they're saying all the right stuff publicly about sticking together, and again, these 8 schools are still a Power 5 league. There was no requirement to have Oklahoma and Texas, no requirement to have a minimum number of schools, so there is still advantages to staying and trying to be aggressive and add teams from the AAC. Meanwhile, the AAC might try to add those teams, right? Like there's going to be, a lot of attempts to poach back and forth with those groups of schools. But I just think, we don't know if they're going to end up sticking together. We don't know if they're going to start acting in their own best self-interest because we've seen this in conference realignment in the past. Just a panic. Nobody wants to be the only person not doing anything. Nobody wants to be the last one left behind. So you see people panic and make decisions where I think, when you talk to people in other leagues, in other Power 5 leagues right now, they're preaching patience in their own conferences because you don't have to act. A lot of these other leagues don't have to do anything. Those 8 schools could very well stay and things would stabilize if they do that. But we know that that's not how people operate here. Everyone's just so terrified of being left behind. So you are going to have those conversations about would the Pac-12 be interested in a block of the Big 12 schools? And, West Virginia is their preferred destination would be the ACC. It would make a ton of sense on their side. Is the ACC interested? Would there be enough value added there? Is the ACC going to have yet another conversation with Notre Dame? And Notre Dame going to say, hey, we prefer independence. We're good. Like all of those pieces are going to be checked out, even if there's not moves. So I just think it's too hard to know about the Big 12 schools, if they're going to stay as a standalone conference. Because it depends who you talk to. A lot of people are like, nope, they'll stay. They'll be their own league, maybe add some teams. And then you have other people saying the Pac-12 really needs to try to get into Texas, et cetera, et cetera. So right now it's a lot of speculation because this took so many people by surprise last week that I think people in other leagues are still processing what opportunities might be there.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the Big Ten with that, Nicole. Look, they could go out and add whoever, pick a couple teams that maybe make sense in a few different ways, and then you're adding a couple schools who now you're dividing the money up more ways. I don't know what you're really doing other than, I guess, getting to 16 if that's what it's going to be at some point. But as someone who knows the Big Ten well, what is the mindset there as far as you know? And what did you think about we know our colleague Andy Staples always comes up with these off-the-wall ideas, but I guess that's what college sports is. Off-the-wall ideas happen now. The Pac-20 or Big 20 or whatever, the Big Ten and Pac-12 having some kind of alliance out of this. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are going to throw out a lot of, interesting ideas that I do think the ideas of alliances more so than mergers might be pursued, or at least, the idea is that these conferences do need to act accordingly or in concert with each other, especially if the SEC is kind of refortifying itself in the Southeast. I mean, you're going to have to think about that stuff if you're the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC. And you don't want to literally add bodies, because what you're describing is adding bodies but not value necessarily. Like, you're going to need to, if you're adding to the Big Ten, those schools that you're adding, because you're going to divide it more ways, like, they're going to have to bring in $50 million a year, right? Like, you're going to have to be adding something that makes it worthwhile. And I don't know if there is that in the leftover Big 12 schools. I mean, think about, if you're the Big Ten, aren't all the schools that you would really want Notre Dame or in the ACC or the Pac-12 already, right? Like, I don't know if it's in that pool of schools from the Big 12 when you look at it from a value standpoint.
Right. No, exactly. Right. So I mean, I know that we've already made geography irrelevant basically, but you're talking some serious stretches there. What about Greg Sankey, Nicole? First of all, you look at this whole picture, and I think the 12-team push made sense anyway for the SEC, as he pointed out. I mean, other people are getting more opportunities. He wants more opportunities for his league, but I can't help but look at it and think, man, what a diabolical undertaking for Greg Sankey over the last few months. And, I mean, Bob Bowlesby standing there and saying, I love this guy. He's just great. And I'm not worried about realignment. How is Greg Sankey regarded right now in the industry?
Yeah, I think there are people throughout the country that don't love how this all went down. I think, I'm with you that the 12-team model made a lot of sense, and I liked it the more time I spent with it. But now you've got to, look back on it and think about it. Okay, well, when did these conversations start? How much did this play into it? The fact that Oklahoma and Texas, knew that it was going to be that size and that format? Because I don't know. Do you make that move if it's only 4? Probably not.
No way.
You would have a much better path getting in from the Big 12, right? So, and then at that point, the SEC probably, I think you always take the call if Oklahoma and Texas are interested in something, but, how interested are they without a 12-team playoff, right? There's all these dynamics here, and only 4 people were involved in the creation of this thing. So if I'm a football bowl division, subdivision commissioner that wasn't part of that working group, or even was, right? Like the other two, Jack Swarbrick was in that room, and Craig Thompson was in that room. I look back at everything and go, what's this above board? What's this in the best interest of the playoff and the sport, right? I think there's going to have to be some conversations about that. And I don't know if you can go to this playoff as soon as people were hoping, in 2023, if you don't even know when when Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in the SEC, and if there's more moving pieces, right? So I think there's definitely a lot of people who are uncomfortable about the way that it went down. Not to say that college sports is always collegial and above board, because no one's saying that. But I think without the playoff expansion piece and the working group, I think it hits a little bit differently. But the idea that something was in the works over a period of, a year plus, 2 years, and this was happening in the background involving 2 of the people directly involved, and one of them was blindsided, I think is a tough pill to swallow for other people in college sports. Because, again, the SEC already has so much power. It already has all these things. It was on the working group. It got to drive playoff expansion. And then you throw this in there, and you're just like, were they just acting in their self-interest the whole time and not what's best for college football? And so I think you'll probably hear people maybe talking about those AQ spots. There aren't AQs in the way that it's formatted. We don't know what time or what year the playoff would be implemented. Like some of those questions, I could see other people raising publicly. They're certainly raising them privately.
Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nicole, last thing for you here. The grant of media rights agreement between the Big 12 and Texas and Oklahoma runs through 2025. There's no way they're hanging around to 2025, right? And enduring all this awkwardness, how quickly do you think this could move with Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC?
Yeah, it's really hard to imagine 4 years of a lame duck situation. It's already awkward when we've seen conference realignment and schools have had to be in that league for one final year, right? We've seen how awkward that could be. So you've got to think that, the lawyers will get involved. This is going to be very expensive for Texas and Oklahoma unless, the rest of the league disintegrates and people try to get out of the grant of rights as well. But, yeah, I mean, you talk to anyone, and I understand that Texas and Oklahoma are saying that they're prepared to wait this out and they're doing what they have to do from a legal perspective to not break the contract. But, there's no way. You can't imagine people being, it's basically like you get divorced, but you're going to, live together and do everything together for 4 more years. People don't do that. So, I expect that it would end up being a very expensive departure, but it's got to be before 2025.
Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, does a great job covering college sports for The Athletic. Nicole, great stuff as always. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
you
Nicole.
as well. Nicole Auerbach, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. When we come back, we'll react a little bit to what Nicole threw out there. Take your thoughts as well on college football expansion on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. This Friday, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game this Sunday, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Participate this Friday morning at 9:45. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Thanks to Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic for joining us in the last segment and discussing college football expansion and expansion in college athletics with Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC maybe as soon as next year. That seems to be the speculation that's out there right now. And, Joe, to Nicole's point, like, I can't imagine them just hanging around to the end of 2025 when this grain of media rights deal expires with the Big 12. That's not going to be good for anybody involved. Now, legally, as Nicole pointed out, Texas and Oklahoma are saying all the right things and that they're prepared to be in the Big 12 till 2025. But when the lawyers get involved and you start talking about the money as well, I have a difficult time imagining that this is not taken care of pretty quickly. And as I pointed out earlier in the show, the speculation seems to be right now that Texas and Oklahoma could be in the SEC as soon as next year. So it could be talking about college football with Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC in 2022.
That'd be my prediction. And that includes the, like Nicole mentioned, the awkward year of 21 this year.
Yeah.
Farewell, everybody. Oklahoma State's president, by the way. See that statement?
I did not.
Yeah, that's some pretty scathing, some pretty good stuff. Basically, to summarize, here at Oklahoma State, we actually care about the welfare of our state that we're in, unlike some other universities in this state.
Yes.
That was a pretty scathing statement. A lot of statements being put out, a lot of threats of, legislative action that won't actually do anything.
Right.
But I can't imagine they'll pay heavily, and I think it will be. I think it'll be Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC in 2022. They got plenty of time to figure that out. I think Georgia. Is it Georgia, Texas? Is that right? There's already a series, I think.
Yeah.
During that time frame. So, hey, find a way to make that. There's one of your conference games. There you go. They don't have to be in a pod, but that can be one of the teams that play. So that's interesting, actually, from like a contractual standpoint. Making that a conference game. But I think there's another one too that's like a Big 12 SEC series that now would just become a conference game. Oklahoma, somebody.
Well, I think it may be Oklahoma, Tennessee.
That's true. There's no, wait a minute, no, but that's right, because
they're
Tennessee
supposed to play each other. Yeah,
that's right. The return trip to Norman didn't happen last year, so there's one. Yeah, so I can't believe it would be.
They're set to meet now in 2024 in Knoxville.
Perfect. In Knoxville.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be last year in Norman, right?
And they've already had one meeting in Knoxville.
Right.
They had one in 2-2.
They had one in Oklahoma too. So they went to Oklahoma in like 2014 or 15. Then the next year, Oklahoma came to Knoxville.
Okay, so it was a 2-2. Okay, so there you go. Make it a conference game. Congrats, Tennessee. Your conference schedule, we know now, will include Oklahoma soon. But you already had them coming in, so why not?
Just put it in there anyway.
Do you change the date? Or does it just stay the same date? I assume it's an early season date, right?
It was supposed to be September the 7th, 2024.
I mean, conference games can happen in September.
Sure.
There you go. No, I can't imagine, whatever the cost is, that it wouldn't happen. Because, again, I mean, these schools can try to keep it together in the Big 12 and, let's just make as much money as we can make before it all ends. But they've got to try to figure out where they're going or what they're doing. Maybe they'll be able to keep it together. That's, but either they're going to gobble some other teams up or be gobbled. Everybody's just got to move on with their lives now.
Ryan Porth texting in. Alabama and Texas, a home and home in 2022 and 23.
There you go.
Alabama, Oklahoma, home and home 2032 and 33.
Oh, good. Well, Saban will.
Game scheduled in 2033.
By then, Saban's hair will be jet black. And he'll just be openly sucking the blood of, opponents. That's probably like Butch Jones was on his staff, just so he could get blood out of his neck at night.
I think so. That's what the real duties of the internship were. Just
he looked a little woozy on the sideline that time. He
wasn't
saying much to people. But he did.
Hope he does well at Arkansas State this year, by the way.
Yeah, he did have those victory cigars ready for beating Tennessee.
Who knows? Maybe Arkansas State at this point could be the next logical member of the Big 12. Maybe Butch Jones is about to get that Power 5 job back.
Ooh, wow.
It's all a part of an elaborate scheme.
And did he know, just like
Heupel.
Tennessee has known all along, But that's, the thing Nicole was talking about last segment. I mean, the Sankey thing here is interesting. And I'm sure there's a certain level of, hey, we're all out here trying to win, and he won. So tip of the cap. But it is fascinating to think of a lot of these discussions and working on this playoff. And, again, making the case that absolutely still makes sense for the SEC without this. And he's right. If you're going to expand and all we're doing is we're making auto bids and now we're going to make sure we have an automatic qualifier and all this stuff, what does that do for me? But then if you think about this and the time frame and everything, whew, Gordon Gekko, baby.
Greg Sankey, he's a coy guy in all this.
He's a smart guy.
He's smart.
I mean, look, it's one of those things where if you're an SEC school, I mean, you have to be happy with Greg Sankey leading your conference. He's winning.
Unless you're Texas A&M.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Will Texas A&M will they fall in line and vote for this just to be collegial with the SEC? I hope not.
I don't think so.
I hope they still vote. I hope they are the one, and that the one is drawn up as a middle finger. You may as well just see it all the way through and express your displeasure, and then quietly enjoy the money you're making in the SEC.
Ryan Porth texting back in. Oklahoma LSU 2027 and 28, and Oklahoma Georgia in 2023 and 2032. Ryan Porth, can you look up the Vanderbilt-Oklahoma series in 2049?
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Does that exist?
Good for Oklahoma, by the way, for scheduling the way they are, right?
Yeah. Lincoln Riley ain't afraid.
He will be.
He's about to really.
He will be.
We're about to see. Oh, Oklahoma. Hey, if you're Tennessee, though, the last time that they came to Neyland, you almost got them.
Well, yeah, Butch kind of
screwed it up.
Bungled that one away, didn't he?
He went to the chart.
Yeah, my gosh.
The infamous chart. Oh. Have a 250-pound running back that's unstoppable going forward for a yard, and you kick a field goal. It's good stuff.
There were warning signs, weren't there?
Yes, there were. There were many warning signs. What was that, 2015?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that one. That was the first edition of the checkerboard in Neyland, which, by the way, they're thinking about, apparently.
Oh, there was in the stands.
In the stands, saying. Yes. Right. Not the end zone.
Yeah.
In the stands. But there's some conversation about doing the checker Neyland for the game against Bowling Green.
Is that right?
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
I mean, will they have enough? Will enough people want to be at that game? I mean, to be able to checker it?
Maybe one of the few wins that you see.
Yeah, I mean, it's prime
the first
time.
Game of Josh Heupel.
It's the first game of a new era.
Yeah,
prime time. It's a season opener. They'll be back. Yeah, so it used to be that would be reserved for a big game.
Well, the first time I ever saw it happen was, I think, the Oklahoma game in
is
2015.
They've done it, I think, for Florida for sure. Yeah,
I don't know that they've won a game while doing it.
But that's a good point. By the way, did you see who Alabama's homecoming opponent is?
Oh, I did. Alabama, their homecoming opponent this year, the University of Tennessee. Isn't that a slap in the face? That kind of tells you where that rivalry is right now.
May not be the last time.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially if you got Texas and Oklahoma coming in.
Everybody's moving down. I mean, it may that may be one of your best options.
If you told a Tennessee fan in 2004 that one day Alabama's homecoming opponent was going to be Tennessee, what do you think the reaction would be?
Well, they'd be shocked, but then don't tell them why and what all has gone on since then, because it'd be even worse.
Yes, it would. Nick Saban. I continue to remind people, I was there the last time Tennessee beat Alabama in person in the building. I was 14.
And again, that was
2006.
Okay, 6.
The year before Nick Saban. Mike Shula, head coach of Alabama.
I mean, look, the thing is, Alabama is actually your reason for hope, right? They went through a decade of absolute just stumbling all over themselves. Didn't matter that they were Alabama. Bear Bryant, that didn't matter. All their tradition, history, facilities, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's what you say to yourself if you're a Tennessee fan. They went through a long time of trying to figure it out.
They did.
The question is, can you figure it out?
We're going to have Trey Wallace on later in the show at 8:30 from Rocky Top Insider. We'll get into the Vols a little bit coming up with Trey Wallace at 8:30. Get his thoughts on expansion in the SEC as well. So looking forward to that coming up next hour. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got a texture that says, ask Porth about that Reds game last night and Baez. Chicago Cubs were the walk-off winner last night against the Reds. And Javi Baez did the row the boat celebration on the walk-off home run. It was quite something.
Porth is angrily shaking his head.
Yes, I'm sure that he is. I'm glad somebody on the text line felt that appropriate to share with Porth.
Good job.
Way to go. A little bit trash talk. We're about that here on the show. When we come back, David Poyle joined Darren Donick and Chase yesterday and had some interesting comments about the Predators as they position themselves for free agency, which begins tomorrow in the NHL. We'll get into those coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. Here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Going to have Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider join us later this hour at 8:30. So looking forward to that conversation with him. We'll get into the Vols a few weeks away now from college football beginning and also get Trey's thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC as well, and what that means for Tennessee. All that coming up at 8:30. But right now, talking Nashville Predators. NHL Free Agency 1 day away, beginning tomorrow. And look, we've already seen a ton of moves in the NHL via trade. And now tomorrow, free agents get added to the mix as well. And a couple of interesting names that are out there, including some names that were on the Predators last year in Mikael Granlund and Eric Haula as well. So lots still to be determined on that front. And David Poile joined Darren Donick and Chase yesterday to discuss a lot of things, the NHL draft being among them, and where the Predators now sit as they head into the free agency period beginning tomorrow. And David Poile talked about maybe the moves that have been made so far and what that does for them now in terms of the cap space that they have and the flexibility that is now on the table. Here's what Nashville Predators general manager David Poile had to say yesterday on Darren Donick and Chase.
Obviously, the first and most important thing was, as I said, and you just mentioned it, that I really felt that we're kind of peaked out with our team, kind of leveling off, and I felt that if we stayed the same, that we actually make it worse, not better. So it was my judgment. It was time to make some changes. I think the fact that we've saved, some money in the two deals that we've made gives us some flexibility to improve our club for this year, but also for down the road, because the cap is essentially going to be flat, it appears, for the next couple of years. So you've really got to be careful about that. I mean, you've seen a number of trades that have been made this year where teams are very low in money, took on salaries to get draft picks. We're not in that area of competitiveness, nor do we necessarily want to do that. But, those deals are hard to come by. And, like, say, in Arizona that took on some players to get draft picks, I mean, they can't do that anymore, essentially because their cap is now getting up there. And if you have a bad contract, it's going to be hard to move that player.
So that was David Poile on yesterday with Darren Donick and Chase discussing the cap flexibility that the Predators now have and what that could mean for them both this year and in the future as well, with a flat cap coming up. We've talked about free agency beginning. I've made it pretty clear. I don't think the Predators should be all that active in free agency. I don't know that the proper approach is getting rid of all this money, freeing up some contract that are not aging well at this point, and then throwing more money at free agents. Now, I'm not saying they should be totally just sitting on their hands in free agency either. If you make a move for a one-year deal, sure, bring in somebody on a one-year deal. You want to re-sign Mikael Granlund? I think that's going to be something absolutely that the Predators try to do. Maybe Eric Hall is a part of that mix as well. So I'm not just saying sit there and do nothing. But in terms of getting yourself involved in these big-name guys like a Landeskog for a long-term deal, I would be very surprised at this point, Joe Rexrode, if that's a route the Predators consider taking.
Yeah. And there's no – not that Poile previews every big move he makes, but as he talks about this stuff, there's no reason to think otherwise. And if anything, there's more reason to go with that instinct. I just think that we're going to see young guys get an opportunity, and I think that the Granlund signing or non-signing is possibly the difference between a team that really has a chance at the playoffs and a team that doesn't. Not that they couldn't if a bunch of things break their way, but I think the cap space and the possibilities a year from now are probably potentially more intriguing. And then you kind of know what you need to do. Are you actually not that far, or is it actually more of a rebuild than you thought? Now, if it gets to that, it's going to be a painful, slog all the way through a season of that. But I think that makes the most sense right now.
There was an interesting report out there yesterday, which kind of got Pred's Twitter buzzing a little bit yesterday. This coming from Nick Alberga up in Toronto, who does a little radio work up in Toronto, also does some work for Sportsnet as well. Putting it out there, says, quote, 2 teams to watch closely on the Ryan Getzlaf front, the Predators and the Boston Bruins.
Oh, yes.
Ryan Getzlaf, who, of course, has spent his entire career to this point with the Anaheim Ducks. He's 36 years old. He's been a very good player, a Stanley Cup champion early in his career with the Ducks, and has been the captain of the Ducks for basically the past decade plus there in Anaheim. He's not the same guy that he used to be. He had 17 points last year in 48 games. So his production has gone way down. But, at the height of his career, he's a guy putting up 91 points, 76 points, 87 points, 73 points. He's typically around a 75-point guy at the height of his career. That, to me, doesn't make any sense for the Predators to be in on Ryan Getzlaf. And I know there were kind of some varying opinions on that yesterday. Adam Vingan pretty vehemently against it. Lots of Predators fans thinking, well, if you can bring in Getzlaf for a one-year deal, maybe he could be your second-line center at that point. To me, bringing in Ryan Getzlaf would pretty much go counterintuitive to everything they've done up until this point.
I mean, Getzlaf and Neal on a line together?
Yeah, man.
Come on.
Yeah.
Bring it on. With Delaney Walker, a tight end for the Titans.
Yes.
It sounds amazing. This city is on the rise.
Now, I do love me some Ryan Getzlaf. Us bald guys got to stick together, and Getzlaf's very good to talk to. So I would like it coming in here personally, but I just don't think it's a very good fit for the hockey team.
Is there too much hatred for Getzlaf from Preds fans because he played for the Ducks and is named Ryan, and he liked Ryan Kessler? Because he's friends with Ryan Kessler and Corey Perry?
Yes.
Because he's not nearly the jerk those guys are.
No. Getzlaf, I mean,
Nah, he's fine.
he had an edge to him, but
Sure.
I wouldn't put him in the same breath as like Corey Perry and Ryan Kessler, no.
No, but it's just guilt by association.
Yeah.
Johnny on Twitter says, the only good thing that would come from the Preds signing Getzlaf is it would piss off Ducks fans. # I don't want him. No, it makes no sense at all to do something like that. If you're going to sign a veteran, sign a veteran who's producing. But you're going to take a job from one of these young players that you're trying to evaluate. Why would you do it with someone who's clearly on the decline and not far from retirement?
Well, and if you're good, if Getzlaf is coming in, and I wonder, the report was 2 teams to watch. Well, what does that mean? It's not like the report didn't say that the Predators were, hey, they're in on Getzlaf and they're closing in on a deal or something like that. 2 teams to watch. I don't know what that means, but just thinking about it logically, if you're the Predators, and maybe you don't get Granlund signed, but would you not be better off if Granlund's not coming back to just roll with Cody Glass as your second-line center and just see what you have there rather than bringing in somebody like Ryan Getzlaf? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
100%.
Unless you want Getzlaf to be like your fourth-line center. Move Sissons up.
That is the most important line on the team.
Maybe Getzlaf can be a part of the Herd line.
That Herd line is
be huge.
It's an offensive line now.
Yeah.
Olivier and Getzlaf. Who's the center? Yeah, Sisson's the center. Who's the left tackle? Getzlaf?
The left tackle. No, good question. I saw that report, and that got Preds Twitter all in a frenzy yesterday. I would be surprised if Ryan Getzlaf ends up here. And that's the other part. If you're him, obviously you're basically in rebuild mode in Anaheim, and he spent his entire career there, and he's talked about wanting to finish his career there before. But now he's a free agent. They've not been able to come to a deal at this point. And at 36 years old, my guess would be you start to take maybe the Joe Thornton route of go find a contender be a small piece on a contender would be my guess.
I really want to find a competitive rebuild to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense for anyone.
Now, Boston makes a little bit of sense for Ryan Getzlaf. Third, fourth liner on Boston, that makes a lot of sense. I don't really anticipate the Predators being a part of that mix. Could be wrong.
They're a team to watch, though, Robbie.
They're a team
to watch.
Hey. Maybe go get Corey Perry.
Ohio State, Clemson, Florida State, and Michigan are teams to watch for the SEC.
What if you got Getzlaf and Corey Perry at the same time for the Predators?
I mean, that would be pretty special.
It would be.
What is Corey Perry's status, by the way?
I don't know if he's a free agent or not.
Did they sign him a multi-year deal?
I mean, he was on a one-year deal with the Stars. I can't imagine that he signed more than a one-year deal with Montreal, too. But let me see. He might be a free agent, too.
So which team is he going to almost win a cup with next year?
I don't know. Get back. Well, hey, maybe that's the secret if you're the Predators. Just get Corey Perry in here, and you're at least going to the final at that point.
That's right. Maybe. I just feel like it's going to be a very uneventful next, little period of time, except on the Granlund front. I mean, the Granlund front is to me, really important. And again, it traces back to the trading deadline.
Robert in Nashville texting in on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Getzlaff, maybe the locker room situation is that bad, and they bring him in to help that out.
Okay. So he's going to come in not having played with these guys. He's an older guy. He's been a leader there, no question. He's going to come in and say, hey, Yeoman, hold on, man. I got this. I mean, he's an older guy who, like you said, Thornton's a great comparison. Trying to find a cup, but
and it's a little different because Getzlaff does have one, so he's at least won a cup before.
Right, but if you're going to keep playing now,
that's what you're doing.
Why? Why are you doing it?
Exactly?
Right? Because you're not signing. You're signing a low cost deal. You're sticking around to try to take another run at it.
Jacob in Murfreesboro texting in, Getzlaff potentially to Nashville gives me Randy Moss to the Titans vibes.
Getzlaff was not Randy Moss
quite Randy
in
Moss.
his prime, but yeah, it's a decent comparison.
Yeah. Donovan from Wisconsin texting in, I believe that Nashville should either target Olmark or Brian Elliott as backup. Both can be starters when needed, but both fit better in a backup role, in my opinion. I think the Predators should stay as far as humanly possible away from Brian Elliott. I mean, to me, that serves no purpose. He's 37 years old. Last few years, he's not been able to stop a puck. That is your job as a goaltender. I'd stay away from that one.
Who's your number one right now?
The more I think about it, the more I really like Antti Ranta. I think that is an option for the Predators that is very intriguing. A lot of this is what's going to happen in Carolina. They traded Nedeljkovic. They got back Bernier. I don't like it either.
I don't like that for them.
But it signals to me that another move is coming there. Like, they got back Bernier, who, by the way, is a free agent, and they've not been able to sign him yet. So you've got Bernier as a free agent that you have the rights to, Peter Mrazek as a free agent that you have the rights to, and James Reimer that you have the rights to as well. I would say at least two of those three are going to hit the market, and they're going to be available. Maybe all three. It could be Carolina swinging at the fences and trying to bring in another goalie, or, as Ryan Porth pointed out yesterday on Preds Insiders, maybe Carolina having some financial issues right now. They're not giving much money to, not even making an offer at this point to Dougie Hamilton. Could be a little concerning to be a Carolina Hurricanes fan at the moment.
Man, that would stink if that's what this is, you know?
Yeah.
They're not that far.
They're not. Very good team last year. We'll see what happens on the goaltending front. But all things being equal right now, I think Ranta might be the way to go. I think you need a veteran backup. Somewhere 28 to 32 years old. Need a veteran backup.
Preferably Finnish.
And I don't think it's going to be Connor Ingram. I know some people floated that out there. I don't know how you could feel comfortable about Connor Ingram right now being the backup goalie. Maybe they do. Maybe they feel differently. But to me, that would be very concerning.
And it's not going to be Carter Hutton.
Probably not going to be Carter Hutton, would be my guess. So we'll see what happens on that front. That's certainly one decision that David Poile and the Predators will have to make. They did make one move yesterday. They got a lot of Preds Twitter in a frenzy. We'll get to that coming up next, as well as your thoughts on our text line as well, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game.
Emergency sirens out there?
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Talking Nashville Predators. We'll have Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider coming up at 8:30, so looking forward to that conversation coming up with him. Yesterday, some moves made by the Nashville Predators. It was the final day to submit the qualifying offers for restricted free agents. Jeremy Davies and Ben Harpur were re-signed yesterday by the Nashville Predators. Davies, a one-year, two-way contract. Ben Harpur, a one-year contract worth $800,000. And Ben Harpur got a significant amount of playing time last year for the Nashville Predators. A lot of people thought maybe that was the last time we would see Ben Harpur in the Nashville Predators uniform. There are times he looked okay. Times it did not go very well for Ben Harpur last year in a Predators uniform. But I got to say, Joe, not a very popular reaction on Twitter yesterday to the re-signing of Ben Harpur by David Poile on the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, there was a lot of outrage for an $800,000 contract.
There was. A whole lot.
I mean, I guess I sort of counted him out because of some of the, other things they've done. But
it's also like if you have to move on from Ben Harpur, you just put him on waivers and you're done with it. Like, it's not that big a deal. It's a one-year contract,
right,
at $800,000.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's a depth. It's
right.
A depth
and
keep.
Look, a lot of people, and I think the genesis of a lot of the passion yesterday was, well, that takes a spot away from Jeremy Davies. I got news for y'all. Jeremy Davies is not ready playing the NHL. Based on what I saw last year, Jeremy Davies is not ready. He's really not all that close to being ready to play in the NHL. So I think some more time at the AHL level will probably do Jeremy Davies pretty good. Then the question is, all right, is it going to be David Ferentz, Mark Borowiecki? Is he going to be a part of this again as well? Because, with the injuries and everything he was going through at the end of last year, he just didn't play. But he still has another year left on his deal. I think the Predators like a lot of what Borowiecki brings to the table. I mean, the bottom line is they've got a lot of options on the back end of their decor. I mean, you think about what their defense looks like right now, even without Ryan Ellis. You've got Yossi, Carrier, Ekholm, Myers, Fabro. Now Ben Harpur back in the mix. Borowiecki's back in the mix. Matt Benning is still in the mix. I mean, there's a lot of options they've got on defense. So I don't know that Ben Harpur is even really going to be a part of things. I guess I didn't read that much into this contract yesterday, but apparently a lot of people did.
I mean, competition's good, right?
Yeah, he's a big guy. Left-handed shot. They need a little bit more from left-handers out there. There's a lot of right-handers in the mix now. Gives you an option there, but I don't know that this necessarily means that, Ben Harpur is going to be the mainstay back there on the third D pair.
Right. Hines clearly likes him.
Sure.
There are other reasons to be outraged.
Not bringing back Eric Gudbranson, though.
Yeah, well, that's where you're outraged,
yes,
right?
For sure. That was a good idea at the time. Worked out well. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Our buddy George texting in. Big free agency question for Pred seems to be whether Connor Ingram is ready to play 25 or 30 games for Nashville. Your thoughts? I think it's just so hard to judge that. I think Connor Ingram's got a lot of ability. He had a great year in Milwaukee a couple years ago when that team was rolling. Last year, he basically didn't play. I mean, he had some off-ice issues that thankfully seemed to have been worked out, and David Poile talked about that a couple weeks ago after Pekarine's retirement, that seems like everything is good now with Connor Ingram, and he's going to be able to get back on the ice and focus on hockey this year. So that's good that he's gotten everything figured out, apparently. But he basically didn't play last year. Like, I don't know how, if you're the Predators, you could feel comfortable with him being your backup goaltender when he's not really played in a year.
How important is it to make the playoffs next year?
I think that depends on who you ask. I think if you ask them, it's still very important.
It's
like,
important
I don't get the vibe here. I just use that word again. I don't get the vibe here from the Predators that they feel like that they're about to go into this downturn. Like I think they feel like they should be right there competing for the playoffs again.
Okay. Well, then to me, you have to invest beyond that and get a veteran who you feel good about starting 30-ish or 35 games. And Connor Ingram may have been on that track before all the stuff happened with him, but I think it's too early.
I think it's too. And look, maybe it gets to the point where halfway through next year he's ready, and then you can adjust from there. But
you've already signed someone probably,
right? And it depends on. I mean, it depends on a lot of things. Like, is the guy you signed, is he playing well? Is he not playing well? Can Saros stay healthy? I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go into it.
Yeah, it's good to have Ingram.
It's good to have Ingram
in there,
yeah,
for sure. And hopefully he's figured it out and he's healthy and keeps progressing, because obviously a couple of years ago there was a lot of excitement about the way he was playing.
I mean, somebody just texted in, at this point, is Ingram ready to play 30 minor league games? And I would hope so at this point. But yeah, that's more along the lines of where I'm thinking with Connor Ingram. Like, in terms of the options, and I came out with my top 5 list of backup goaltenders a couple weeks ago here on the show. He was at number 5, and the more I think about it, I'd probably move him down the list, number 6 or 7. Like, I just think if you can find a veteran, that would be the way to go. I just think it makes too much sense.
Or Askarov, just bring him.
Yeah, just bring him up.
Get it going right away.
I did find it interesting the other day that in that press conference, Askarov was brought up, and they basically said he's going to be over there for 2 years, which I don't think is a huge surprise to anybody. But
the press conference with Poyle and
Kelty,
brass.
Yep.
And also, I think, what was the term? Something was applied to him. It was a big term. Generational player, maybe not quite that.
Franchise
big.
player.
Yeah, franchise player.
Yep.
There you go.
So what does that mean? What does that mean for Saros? Like, Adam Vingan came on the show yesterday and pointed out, like, if you're Saros, you're probably wanting a long-term deal at this point. What does a long-term deal mean if you're the Predators? Like, I don't think the Predators are going to want to sign him to a 7 or 8 year contract.
No.
So what do you do? Like, what is a long-term deal for UC Saros? 3 years? 4 years? Where do you cap that number if you're the Predators?
I would assume it would be a 3 or 4 year deal. Have the Preds been to control cost and also to not have no movement clauses? Has the trade-off been term? Is that fair to say?
I would say yeah, I think so.
Like, term has been sort of like the concession from Poyle, right?
Yeah.
So, well, maybe that needs to change some.
Yeah. Maybe so. Well, the other part, like, if you're Saros too, it's interesting because he's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. Like, the timing of this has worked out pretty good for the Predators, in all honesty. Like, you can get him locked up for the next 3 or 4 years now, but if you're him and you want a long-term deal, and you could really stretch this thing out to arbitration, play on a 1 year deal, and then next year you're an unrestricted free agent. You can go wherever you want to. Now,
if he plays like this last year, that's great for you.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I don't know what UC Saros is thinking there. My guess would be he wants to play here, and he wants to play here long term. But if the Predators aren't willing to go beyond 2 or 3 years, does that change the way you think if you're UC Saros? I don't know. That's interesting to figure out. I mean, that's obviously, of the decisions they have to make, and I would include Granlund in this, that's still, Saros is number 1 on that list of decisions you've got to make moving forward here.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't talk about it enough. I hope, based on UC's personality, very, very kind, unassuming, type of guy who would take a friendly deal. I hope he has a ruthless agent.
I think he's got the same agent Shea Weber has, which, again, that's kind of an interesting dynamic between the Predators, too.
That is.
By Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider. We'll get into the Tennessee Vols with him just a few weeks away now from college football season beginning, and get Trey's thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Talking Tennessee Vols and expansion in the SEC as well. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider. Trey, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing great. Really loving the DMB intro. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
That's
what we're about here on the show. Michelle bringing the hits, making Trey happy before we come on the air here. We like it.
I'm with you, Trey.
Nothing like it, boys. How are y'all?
We're doing great, Trey. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. I want to start by getting your thoughts, and we've talked a lot about it here on the show today. Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12. All indications are they're going to be joining the SEC, maybe even as soon as next year, next football season. What have you thought of all this? What does this mean for the SEC? What do you think this could mean for Tennessee in the SEC as well, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in?
I think it, when everything kind of went down last week, it took a couple hours to, compress it, and then you realized that, Ross New York was down there, and there was a reason he was down there. ADs don't travel to media days. You just don't see that. So I think they kind of knew that was coming. And then everything that's happened in the last, five days that we're leading up here till now, and it seems like everything's kind of falling in line here. Randy Boyd and Donde Plowman should be meeting with other SEC presidents and chancellors on Thursday. And if we get Oklahoma and Texas to submit their request to join the conference within the next 2 days, that meeting's going to line up just in time. I think overall, I'm good with like 2 more teams joining. I would really not like to see, it get up to like the 20 mark or the 24 mark. I think that would be bad for the conference. You're kind of taking away the allure of the Southeastern Conference when you do something like that by bringing in so many teams. But also, I feel like this is a money situation for the conference as well. I think they're going to have to go back in that contract that the SEC and ESPN announced, I think it was last summer. They're going to rip that up, and they're going to have to figure out a way, to add these 2 teams to it and figure out how much more money these schools are going to get. So that's where Tennessee kind of falls in the line here. I think, first looking at it, I think, the Volunteers, they're going to get maybe an extra $16 to $20 million per year from the conference when it comes to TV rights. We're not talking about, bowls or anything along those lines, postseason type stuff. I think right now it doesn't really affect Tennessee in a sense of competition on the field, because Tennessee has their own problems right now trying to get back to that relevant state. But I think when you look at it down the line, it's, okay, these are 2 more opponents, in a sense that Tennessee is going to have to go through. Now, does this mean that, Tennessee can go into Oklahoma now and try to poach a recruit, or can they get into Texas more and try to get after a player? Sure. But where have they, succeeded in that right now to begin with, besides, going in and getting, Caden Salter from this, 2 years ago, getting his commitment from the state of Texas. So from Tennessee side of it, I just think they have to step back and look at it. Okay, y'all are doing your thing. We've got to worry about building up our program first, where we can be competitive with you guys. And until that happens, it's just a money grab for the Volunteers right now.
So the SEC fan, Trey, if you could poll the entire SEC football fandom right now, what do you think it would come up with in terms of in favor or not in favor of this move?
Joe, I think it would probably be in favor just because they want to beat Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, it's more or less, do you look at this thing and try to figure out, okay, what can Texas and Oklahoma bring that we already don't have in our conference? But I think it gives SEC, if you're asking the regular SEC fans, maybe travels to a game or travels to watch their team. Okay, now we get to go to Austin on the regular. Now we get to go to Norman, Oklahoma on the regular. And I think that it's going to be able to I don't know how it helps the conference besides a money situation and a viewership situation, but SEC fans, if they would have added like West Virginia, or if they would have, added somebody else out of the state of Texas, I think you wouldn't have seen, the big picture of, okay, no, we don't want to do this. But now it's just a lot of SEC fans making fun of the Big 12 and saying, okay, we're poaching 2 more of your members. So I think, they kind of like it. I think it sets up for some interesting battles, especially, Tennessee and Texas, or Tennessee, Oklahoma, or Alabama, Texas. There's so many intriguing things that could come out of this that I think the SEC fans would be down for it.
Trey Wallace from RockyTopInsider.com on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Trey, switching gears to Tennessee on the field, obviously Josh Heupel and company at SEC Media Days last week, and the quarterback, a popular topic of conversation. Obviously, there's a lot of room, or a lot of crowded room in that quarterback room right now with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker and Harrison Bailey and Brian Maurer. What do you think of the quarterback competition as it heads in to fall camp here? And who do you think at the end of the day is ultimately going to be under center for Tennessee once the season begins?
Honestly, this thing starts up next Wednesday. I think within the first 2 weeks, you've got to narrow this thing down to 2. And then you have to go from there. I think this is going to be a Bailey-Milton battle the last 2 weeks of fall camp, figuring out who the quarterback's going to be. I don't think, this is not a knock on Brian Maurer. I just right now don't feel like he's there with the playbook from talking with some folks to be able to make a run towards that starting position. And Hendon Hooker has a really good arm. He's been able to get a lot of work in with the receivers this summer. His roommate is Velus Jones, and they've been working out, almost every weekend. Can he, do what he's done on the weekends when it comes to passing with his receivers, Walker Merrill, and, you get Velus and Jalen out there to really make things interesting? We're going to find out. He has experience, and that's the big thing as well, too, that you can't forget about Hendon. I know Harrison has a couple games underneath his belt. So does Joe Milton. But Hendon Hooker, could be the most experienced quarterback in a sense on the roster when it comes to game time. So, I think this is something where Bailey has a really good shot at this starting spot, and I think it's something where Milton comes in with his look. Everybody talks about his frame, but he's got a really good arm. And a lot of people, I don't think, understand. They want to go back to last year's film, and they want to say, oh, man, look at the passes he didn't complete. Look at the interceptions he threw and how he wasn't getting a lot of zip on the ball after that Indiana game. Well, they don't understand that, Joe Milton tore ligaments in his thumb last year and had surgery immediately after the season, but he didn't really tell his coaches until about 2 weeks after he tore a couple ligaments in that hand. So, I want to see what Joe Milton looks like as he's fully healthy. And if he's the quarterback that you saw, that first game against Minnesota, okay, then I could see him being the starting guy for Tennessee and being able to run an RPO and being able to get the ball down the field. Harrison Bailey's just a different type of quarterback than Joe Milton would be. So it's all about which type of quarterback this Tennessee staff feels like they can win with, and that's why I think they have 2 totally different options with Bailey and Milton.
If they get it, pick the right guy, and it works out the way it has worked out a lot when Josh Heupel has run an offense and worked with quarterbacks, I think we're going to at least have a lot more aesthetically pleasing Tennessee football this year, Trey. But is it going to be weekly shootouts? What do you think about the defense right now?
That's the rough part, Joe. Defensive line depth, okay, they've added a couple pieces, but they had a couple pieces left, which in the end, this is not a knock to the players. I think it was good for the program that they had a little bit of attrition, and they added some. I think Terry can be the type of player that comes in and makes an impact for Tennessee along that defensive line. I think Caleb Tremblay is a depth type of player, but I think he can be a factor as well. But their biggest problem is going to be, what do they do with that linebacker spot? And how do they handle the secondary? It's not like they're just going to be able to flip a switch and this defense is going to go out there and be top 6 in the conference. They're going to struggle. And the biggest part about this is they're going to struggle in the sense of having the 2 to 3 deep guys, especially when needed when the offense is off the field every 2 minutes. Going kind of getting around to the defensive side. I was talking to Velus Jones Jr., and he talks about, these coaches want to get up to the ball every 5 seconds and run a play. Okay, well, if that's happening, man, your defense is going to be on the field the majority of the game. And it's how much they can stand against some of these offenses in the Southeastern Conference that's going to intrigue me. So, when I look at this thing, I think the defense is going to have to step up at the linebacker spot along, that Jeremy Banks. How can Juwan Mitchell play? And then you look at, again, that defensive line. Can they get the help they need from a guy like, Latrell Bumpus or Matthew Butler, Elijah Simmons, kid Byron Young or Tyler Barron play well enough coming off the edge to get them off the field? So it's going to be about depth, and it's going to be about how long they're on the field for me.
So, Trey, we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks in this offense, but what about the weapons that they'll be throwing the ball to with Velus Jones Jr., as you brought up, Jalen Hyatt in the mix as well? What do you think of this receiving core for Tennessee? What do you think the upside is for this receiving core for the Vols?
I like it. I really do. You add in, guys like Jimmy Callaway, or you add in Javonte Payton to go along with Velus and Jalen, and even a guy like Cedric Tillman, how they're going to be able to use him this year. I think Tennessee's wide receiving core is something that could lead them this year in a sense of, being the veterans on the field. You've got guys out there, and you've got playmakers out there on the edge, and I think that's something they're going to have to use. My biggest thing, too, is, how do you use a guy like D. Beckley? Do you bring him out of the backfield and you line him up right there at that edge and get him down the field? That's going to be key to me. And even the tight ends, the tight ends too, they're going to be involved in this offense when it comes to passing. So, you look for guys like Princeton Fan or Jacob Warren to take the pressure off the wide receivers where, you've got Velus and you've got Jalen running down the field in wide open spaces. I think that's going to be, key for how Tennessee does with this offense, especially trying to figure out how they're going to run the football, because I think they're talented at that spot. But when you just look at straight up wide receivers, they've got a lot of speed. They've got some height, and I think they can take that to their advantage, especially, the first 3 games of the season before, conference play starts, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. I don't know if you'll see a 1,000-yard receiver just because Tennessee has so many weapons on offense this year at that spot, but we'll see. At least the quarterbacks have a lot to deal with on the outside.
So, Trey, as the guy who broke the story on the investigation that ended up costing Jeremy Pruitt his job, how about a prediction right now? We talking is Heupel being too optimistic when he says basically he thinks it'll be a year of them paying for it and then they'll be able to move forward? Do you think they're just going to impose a postseason ban this year? How do you think this turns out?
Joe, I think they're trying to get this thing done where they don't drop a bomb, middle of the season towards the end and say, hey, we're self-imposing a bowl ban or whatnot. I think you could. Tennessee needs to go at it in a sense of a 1-year self-impose. Cut your scholarships down to 10, which they could backtrack on and look at this past year and look at the scholarship players that they already have. You're going to see some recruiting restrictions. And a lot of people want to try to make the argument, Joe, about, oh, man, look what's going on with the NIL. It's kind of the same as what Tennessee was doing. They shouldn't be punished because the NIL is happening. Well, you have to explain to them what Tennessee was allegedly doing had nothing to do with NIL. Paying for players' hotel rooms or potentially paying players and recruits and doing this, with bags and underneath the table. None of that has to do with NIL stuff. So I think that mindset from Tennessee fans, kind of need to push that aside. But I also think that the NCAA's power is diminishing so much day by day that if I'm Tennessee, I get this thing wrapped up. They spent $90,000 on their investigation in June. We'll see what that looks like in July. If it comes down a little bit, this thing would be coming in for a landing. You would hope so. So in the end, I'd say 1 year bowl ban. Yeah, scholarship reductions, recruiting restrictions. Tennessee fired everybody they could that was involved in that investigation and malpractices from the staff. So I think you just have to roll with it. I don't think, does the NCAA come back and say, okay, well, 1 year is not enough, you got to do 2 years. Okay, that's possible, but if that were to happen, that's going to be down the road. And we're not talking about, we're not talking about in the next 6 months. We're talking about in the next, 12, 18 months. So Tennessee's been working alongside the NCAA during this whole investigation and keeping the NCAA abreast of everything that's gone on. And I think it's going to pay off at the end, Joe, when they do the self-imposed. And I think the NCAA will agree with them.
Trey Wallace from RockyTopInsider.com has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Covers the Volunteers as well as anyone. Trey, great stuff as always, brother. Appreciate you taking time to join us.
Hey, thank y'all for having me on today. Y'all have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll come back, react to what Trey had to say there, and look ahead to Tennessee's quarterback battle as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Tune in to Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9. Tonight, the Sounds begin a 6-game homestand at First Horizon Park against Columbus, the AAA affiliate of the Cleveland Indians. Pre-game show with Jeff Him starts at 6:50 and first pitch is at 7:05. Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by 312 Pizza Company and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Taking on Columbus tonight with the Sounds is, as we found out yesterday, Darren McFarland, a big fan of the name change of the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians. Big fan.
Did he go off?
He didn't go off. I think he's not overly excited about Guardians.
I enjoyed the, they play that old school, like 70s.
Indian Fever song? Oh, yeah.
And Elijah put in
Guardians.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
very nice. Very nice work.
See what happens on that front. I don't know that there's a name they could have come up with
There's no name.
that people would have been like, you know what? Yeah.
There's no
That's it.
Yeah, there's no new name that people are going to – I mean, when the Washington Bullets – and, man, I loved watching some Washington Bullets hoops in the 80s with Jeff Ruland and those guys. When they changed to the Wizards, it was just – people were so mad. Who cares?
Worked out okay.
It's fine. Wizards, sure.
See what happens on that
Again,
front.
just name your –
Apparently the other option was the Cleveland Spiders. The Cleveland Spiders.
I mean, people would be making fun of that right now.
Yeah. Guardians is something.
I mean, Spiders, at least Spiders, to me, again, name your team after a ferocious type of animal, and, you're good.
Yeah. Spiders would fit that bill.
Or, be really creative, like the UC, you know what UC Santa Cruz is, right?
No.
Probably the greatest mascot in sports.
No.
The Banana Slugs.
The Banana Slugs.
The UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs.
That's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
I can't believe I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's great.
See? Just be creative.
Exactly.
Guardians, you'll be fine, D-Mac. It'll grow on you.
It'll grow on you. 2 years from now, the Darren McFarland walking around in a Cleveland Guardians jersey.
You could have, you could put a picture of your guy, your clone.
Who's my clone?
Well, you said Chris Pratt's going to play you in a movie.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
The Guardians.
Yeah.
See?
I see
Little
what you did
tie-in.
there, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's good.
There we go.
Little Guardians of the Galaxy action. Like it. Well done.
Porus huh? What is that?
What's that?
Movie?
Is that a movie?
Is that an album?
A motion picture? What's that?
He actually doesn't know. Look.
Thanks to Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider for joining us in the last segment. Trey throwing out there that he thinks the quarterback battle is ultimately going to boil down to Joe Milton and Harrison Bailey. So I've always kind of believed that Brian Maurer is a pretty distant fourth in this competition.
Poor Brian Maurer.
I know. But playbook apparently is an issue with him. Could not learn the playbook with Jim Chaney, and now, according to Trey, maybe having some issues with that with Josh Heupel as well.
He's had other roles in the program. So
that is true. So Hendon Hooker, according to Trey, maybe be kind of the outside looking in, and Bailey and Joe Milton, maybe the top two contenders for the quarterback position. What do you think of that? And what do you think of what Trey threw out there about Joe Milton? That obviously the way he plays and the way Harrison Bailey plays, different, but maybe Milton, I think, maybe has a little bit more upside with the arm that he has. Milton's got a big arm. I don't know about Harrison Bailey yet. We'll see on that front. But what do you think of the competition being between those two guys? And if you're Tennessee and Josh Heupel, when do you need to have it narrowed down in your mind?
Well, I agree with Trey. You got to be at least splitting it between two guys pretty quickly. And then, there's probably movement from that. But I'm just not as bullish on Milton. I understand the thumb thing. But it wasn't just like a guy out there struggling because of an injury. I mean, he was still out there able to perform. I mean, he was not making good decisions consistently for Michigan. Their offense was abysmal. And you can blame, just like here at Tennessee, it's not all on Garantano. There's a lot of blame to go around with the coaches. So I think that's fair to look at Michigan and say that. But from what I saw, taking that into account, I don't feel like he comes in and it's like, oh, everybody would get out of the way. Here's your quarterback. He is starting from behind, as Trey said. I mean, Hooker, came in with a strong idea that he would be the starter, right?
Yep.
This is why you make this move if you're him. And you knew that Bailey and Maurer are there. So you're probably not thrilled that Milton's coming in to join this mix, but the fact that he works with the receivers and things like that, I think it's one of those three guys. I guess if I had to make a prediction right now, I guess I'd go Milton, but I don't feel like it's a slam dunk.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Philip and Franklin texting in. Maybe I heard Trey wrong, but if all UT is going to get is a year of self-imposed postseason ban and a year of losing a handful of scholarships, then my team better start paying recruits in McDonald's bags. It's completely worth it.
Who's your team?
I don't know.
The McDonald's bag thing is not true, by the way.
Well, that didn't happen.
Narduzzi, by the way. Pat Narduzzi, Pitt coach, made a McDonald's bag joke at ACC Media Day. So it'll never die. It'll never die, but it's not true.
I'm okay with it not dying, though. That's fine.
Well, first of all, anybody reacting to this and what the punishment is, have you seen all the details? Because I haven't. I've heard a lot of things.
I've not seen
but a lot of things you hear don't necessarily end up in the report. So let's wait and see exactly what all went down. And I think Trey's dead on. A lot of people are like, oh, now why don't we? But the bottom line is, whatever the rules were when you did stuff, that's how you have to be judged. But I do think that moving forward, it's going to be a hard sell for anyone to get, serious. And first of all, a lot of these things are just now going to be, to me, they should be. Well, I mean, that's one reason why it should be completely deregulated and wide open. Then you just eliminate all this crap. Great. Some middle-aged businessman gave a kid a few $100 because he's awesome at football. Okay. But I have to think that that's still in the back of the mind. It's like we talk about the Hall of Fame, right? Ooh, somewhere in the back of your mind, that guy played for the Cowboys. Yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe that has an impact on a voter, maybe not. But if you're the infractions committee right now, you really going to bring the hammer on anybody? And probably especially not. If, as Trey said there, Tennessee's done everything you're supposed to do in terms of working with them. Imagine Tennessee coming out and saying, okay, we're going to take away the postseason. We'll have fewer, recruiting restrictions with some of the coaches. A couple coaches can't go out, a few scholarships. And the NCAA say, no, my friend. Here comes the hammer. And you're in the same, and Will Wade just carries on.
Keeps going.
It doesn't add up.
By the way, the man has entered the building in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Aaron Rodgers is in the facility at Lambeau Field. Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network capturing the video, Rodgers walking in, man bun and all, into the building.
It's right behind you on the screen. He arrived at 9:31 Eastern time.
Wow, very precise at the time.
Exciting.
Yes. Does that mean he's a minute late, or is he really early?
That's a good question. Does it matter? Doesn't matter anymore.
Nope. Aaron Rodgers back in there, buddy.
It's like senior year. It's like senior year of high school for Rodgers.
Just do whatever he wants, man.
Senior skip day.
Entering his 17th season as the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre only got 16. Bart Starr only got 16. So no Packers quarterback ever got to 17. Now Aaron Rodgers has.
And Bart Starr, 2 Super Bowl rings.
Yep.
Brett Favre, 1.
Aaron Rodgers, 1. Going for 2 here.
Maybe going for 2 this
year.
See
what happens on that front. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on college athletics, get back into what the future of the SEC could look like with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the fold. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joey from Gallatin texting in the last segment. I'm surprised yet relieved that Harrison Bailey stayed after openly backing Pruitt alongside of his dad. Shows some patience on Bailey's part. I feel like if he had gone into the portal, life would be even more difficult for the new coaches. I would say that is good news that Harrison Bailey stuck around for Tennessee. Now, we'll see how patient Harrison Bailey will remain if he's not the starting quarterback this year. What does that do at that point?
Well, and the thing is, so Hooker has – is that right that Hooker has – I get so confused now because you get the extra year, but Hooker has 1 year of eligibility left?
I believe so.
Milton has more, so that's part of it too. Like if Hooker were to win the job, but you feel like you're ahead of Milton, then maybe you're like, okay, stick it out, be ready for my opportunity this year, and then I'm in good position if I keep progressing next year. But if it's Milton, then it's kind of like, okay.
Well, and let's be honest here. The likelihood is you're probably going to see all three of them. Like my guess is as the season progresses, whether it's injury – or the way this season could go for Tennessee, you're probably going to see every single one of those quarterbacks, would be my guess.
You might, but, I mean, this is supposed to be where Heupel's really good at the same time too, right? So if the strength of Heupel comes to the forefront immediately, then whoever's chosen, in theory, would be playing well.
Yeah.
Would be producing. That's in theory. You're probably more right. At least we'll see a couple of them.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. Discussing college athletics right now. We've talked about this for a lot of the show today. Had Nicole Auerbach on earlier from The Athletic. Texas and Oklahoma look like they're going to be joining the SEC very soon. And, the reports last night is it could be as quickly as next year, 2022, where Texas and Oklahoma are in there. Their grant of media rights agreements with the Big 12 currently last until 2025. And as Nicole pointed out earlier in the show, that'd be pretty awkward at this point. I mean, it's been a very public divorce between Texas and Oklahoma and the Big 12. There is money involved, and it would be very expensive for Texas and Oklahoma to break that contract early. My guess is they probably just bite the bullet and break that contract early and get into the SEC. At this point, I think I'd be surprised if next college football season, both Texas and Oklahoma were not in the SEC at this point in 2022.
I mean, there's one awkward season ahead, and
Yep.
There's a big paycheck and lawyers and blah, blah, blah. Let's have some more legislators make statements. Let's have some more university presidents put out tweet storms shaming. I mean, I was here for the Oklahoma State president's tweet storm of shame that basically, University of Oklahoma does not care about its citizens. And get rid of the awkwardness as quickly as possible. I'll be shocked if they are not playing in the SEC in 22. And then there's
That's
so
quite
much
the turnaround from Friday's Call Your Shot Friday.
Yes, well, hey, just keep calling those shots. Something will be right at some point, right?
That's right.
Again, to remind you, I didn't really think I was going to be right.
I know.
But that was a good shot at the time. A good called shot this Friday would be Texas and Oklahoma will begin SEC play in 2024.
Yes. Yes, it would be.
And there's so many questions about what happens in the aftermath of this. The Big Ten, Pac-12, Andy Staples had this interesting idea about that. It's weird, but, I mean, honestly, it makes sense. If the Big Ten is going to do anything to actually try to advance itself in this big race to be the most powerful and rich conference,
snatching up teams from the Pac-12.
That's about it. And then the Big 12. So the AAC, and actually David Ubben and Staples have a story on the Big 12 that they call the Irate Eight. The leftover teams, the Irate Eight. So the American, according to a source in the American, wants to go to 16, right?
Okay.
And so they would go – they would add, if they have their choice, if they can do this, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. But the Big 12 does still have the brand power, and it also has the Power 5 autonomy status in the NCAA structure, which is important. Now, so the Big 12, what about adding like Cincinnati and Central Florida, just adding the best possible on-field product. It makes no sense that let's go to Ohio and let's go to Florida, and those are our 2 new Big 12 schools. But then also, we've talked about this yesterday. What about Houston? What about SMU?
Well, right now, if you're the Big 12, I think your top concern is keeping the schools that you still have, right? I mean,
well, right. That's the only way you're doing it is if you have this conversation and say, "Listen, we add this, this, and we can at least maintain, like we can still be in better shape than anyone else below the like the top 4."
Well, I bring that up because I think it's apparent at this point that some programs in the Big 12 are going to start trying to move. Like West Virginia essentially is doing that right now. Nicole Auerbach put out a statement and kind of linked it out to the West Virginia website. I mean, it's on their website in West Virginia right now. And it starts off with the obligatory, we're disappointed in the actions of Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12, blah, blah, blah. And then basically the rest of the statement is a recruiting pitch for West Virginia and joining the ACC.
Right.
And they don't come out to say that, but that's essentially what it is.
But I have my doubts that it's going to be – I have my doubts it's going to work.
It may not, but I'm just saying I think it's obvious, and Nicole, I think, brings up a good point here. When things like this start to happen in college sports, what scares people in power more than anything is doing nothing and feeling powerless and just waiting on things to happen. They want to take the initiative. They want to make sure they're not left out in the cold. I think you're going to see some Big 12 teams start to look around a little bit and say, all right, Texas and Oklahoma is gone. We better find a landing spot before this thing just totally disintegrates on us and we're left out in the cold.
Some Big 12 schools.
Yeah.
Remember, this is higher education, Robby.
Yes.
Well, I agree. So I think it's like every school for itself, and then meanwhile you're still having discussions with each other about, okay, if we are still together, what does that look like? What do we add? How do we do it? I think West Virginia, certainly. If West Virginia could go to the ACC, they're jumping in. I mean, from a basketball perspective, they actually add some value. It's a good program, and then, of course, they're playing in arguably the best league. Well, I think the ACC is, you think about coaching changes and where things are going, that may not be true anymore. The SEC hoops, that's pretty good. But I think that they're going to try to do that. And I just have my doubts that the ACC is going to think that's adding enough value. I could be wrong, but then if that's the case, then this scenario comes into play. If they even just go, then that really strengthens the Americans' hope, right? The AAC's hope of being the one that gobbles up the Big 12 rather than the other way around.
Raymond on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, is Memphis going to a Power 5 conference?
Well, is the Big 12 a Power 5 conference? They're not, really. I mean, they'd be like so you'd have like the Power 4, the Group of 5, and like the middle child
standalone,
12.
Yes.
Yeah. So but I mean, the Memphis could be part of the Big 12. And when the smoke clears, Memphis could be part of the Big 12. And so some would say, hey, Memphis is in a Power 5 team. They really aren't anymore because the Big 12 won't really be a Power 5 conference anymore. That's a huge definition of Power 5 if you still include them with the power
right.
brokers here. But it would still be, I mean, I think you could say it's another step up for Memphis. And it would be some interesting if that league the Irate 8 stay together.
I love that name.
That's fantastic. I think I'm going to give Ubben credit for that. I mean, you're playing TCU, you're playing Baylor, playing West Virginia. It's good.
Yeah.
This isn't bad for everybody.
Well, what do you think of the idea that Jay Billis threw out there that the SEC, maybe it's not done, and if you're the ACC, you pick up the phone, you call Greg Sankey in the SEC offices and say, what do you guys think about maybe merging together and just combining the SEC and the ACC?
So again,
I find that hard to believe, but
I mean, at this point, I'm sure every possible phone call is happening. So what was it?
The SACC.
Yeah. So that's the Southeastern Atlantic Coast Conference?
I guess so.
So isn't it SEACC?
I'm just telling you what the initials were that somebody sent in on the text line.
But yeah, SAC is, big sack of money.
Oh, boy. Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jose texting in. with all of these super conference setting up, it will soon be time for the players to unionize and truly get compensated for this ongoing money grab by the NCAA schools.
I understand the sentiment. Corey Curtis presented it yesterday, and I understand it. I'm just saying that's name, image, likeness, long time coming, should have happened a long time ago. It's all you need. They're not, and again, if you get to the point where it's unionized employees who are getting paid, then every single athlete at a school has to get paid the same.
Yeah.
Essentially. I mean, I know that there's different interpretations of the federal law known as Title IX, but that is how I understand it. So it's not going to happen. You can't separate football and say just the football players get paid. It's not name, image, likeness. Whatever you can get out there, get it.
We have more growing sense news in the NHL.
Uh-oh.
You ready for this? It's coming from Andy Strickland. Lots of eyes continue to stay on Gabriel Landeskog. There's a growing sense around him that he's leaning towards staying in Colorado. Both sides have been making each other sweat it out. No surprise it's coming down to the wire. So a growing sense that Gabriel Landeskog could be staying in Colorado with the Avalanche.
I never realized this was such a hockey term.
Apparently so.
Growing sense, eh?
A lot of growing senses in the NHL, apparently. See what happens on that front.
Shocking.
NHL free agency beginning tomorrow on July 28th. So we'll see how active or not active the Predators are in that respect. When we come back, we will get into the Tennessee Titans. Training camp officially opens today, on the field tomorrow. Mike Vrabel speaking at 11:30 today for the Titans as well. All that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Titans training camp getting underway today officially. Mike Vrabel speaking with the media at 11:30. Players hit the field tomorrow over at St. Thomas Sports Park, and training camp is here. All 32 NFL teams at this point reporting today for training camp. Some have already gotten underway with their training camp. So NFL season is here, football season is here, and 102.5 The Game is bringing you Nashville's best coverage of Titans training camp, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and the Cut Truck Mobile Barber Services as well. And we will have Mike Vrabel, Titans head coach, on our show tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So looking forward to being joined by Mike Vrabel tomorrow morning on Robby and Rexrode at 7 a.m. Joe Rexrode, an in-person press conference today with Mike Vrabel at Titans training camp. How fired up are you about being able to go back and forth with Vrabel in person today?
I'm excited, but first I have to ask you, can you tackle in handball?
I don't think that's allowed.
I just saw someone tackle someone in handball.
I'm pretty sure that's not allowed.
There's a big Spain versus France women's handball game on. I don't know.
It's a great sport.
Network it is. It is, but I swear I just saw that. Someone let us know on the text line. I might Google it too.
Have to look up the rule book.
In the meantime, yes, very excited. This will be Mike Vrabel's, I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, first time talking to us in person since we were crowding around him in Indy at the Combine in February of 2020. About a month before the world changed quite dramatically. And we were asking him about, Tom Brady and what do you think of Tom Brady? Did you like him? Did you get along with him as a teammate? Would you like him to maybe be your quarterback? Things like that.
That was a fun time.
Didn't really tip his hand, but he actually had some pretty funny quotes. But that I remember coming out of that thinking, boy, the Titans have made it very clear they want Derrick Henry. They want to work something out with Derrick Henry because, of course, at that time we're like, are they going to tag him? What are they going to do?
Sure.
And a little less bullish about Tannehill publicly from Vrabel and John Robinson, but of course they ended up getting both those deals done, and that was a very strong part of an otherwise not good 2020 offseason. But now, Vrabel, after all these Zooms, it's fun. I think it'll be a lot of fun at the presser today. I will say, as much as I hate Zoom, and if I never had to get on Zoom again, I would not cry about it. The Zoom chats, when you can take shots at people while they're asking questions, and then everybody sees it and laughs about it, and every once in a while Vrabel can't help himself but to laugh about it, I will kind of miss that.
Well, Vrabel taking shots at people too?
That's right.
On the Zoom chat.
We called me a clown, didn't he?
He did?
Yeah, that's right. He called me a clown last year, which was
kind of accurate.
Yeah. I don't even remember what I was doing that day, but I was going to make that my Twitter heading, but I forgot about it. Maybe I can go.
It's not too late.
Joe Restaurant might be the new leader in the clubhouse, though.
Joe Restaurant. I have not referred to you as Joe Restaurant as frequently as I promised that I would. After that found its way onto the closed captioning on the what was that? Was that ESPN? Was that the SEC network? What was that?
So Brian McGee sent it to me. It was whatever network was showing. It must have been one of the ESPNs.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It was the College World Series. Yeah.
It was College World Series press conference. And I got to find this too.
Joe Restaurant.
And it's a great picture. It's like Corbin is getting a question. Well, I guess he's getting it from me. And the picture of him looks like he's listening to the dumbest question ever asked, which he may have been. Yeah. Well, you know what? No, because it says our next question will be from Joe Restaurant. Here it is. Look at this.
Our next question will be from Joe Restaurant.
Look at Corbin's expression.
Face. It's like, all right, cool.
He looks very excited to be
talking to you,
having Joe Restaurant ask him about something. But anyway, yeah, the chat. I love a lot of ripping on Kaharski in there.
Yeah,
a lot of ripping on Stillman in there. We'll kind of miss that.
Maybe you do it in person today. Just a little backhand talking while somebody else is asking a question.
Well, that could certainly happen. We will miss Teresa though.
Yeah. Over in Tokyo covering the Olympics.
Vrabel always gives Teresa the first question, so then that's the next question. Who gets the first question at the Teresa Walker-less presser today?
Will it be you?
No.
Probably not.
It will not be me.
Probably not. As I'm sure we know, there will be two things that will be brought up a lot, both today and kind of throughout the league as they go forward. Obviously, with every team, injuries, what's going on that front. I'm sure that Mike Vrabel and the Titans probably won't have a ton to say about Caleb Farley and a ton to say about Bud Dupree and company and people dealing with injuries today, as they normally don't. And vaccinations will be brought up as well. It's been funny. I've been following along this morning with Stephen Holder in Indianapolis, and they're basically going like player by player, updating who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. And I would imagine that's going to be a popular question today with the Titans as well, and when players start to be made available to the media as well.
Yeah, and then that brings up the question to me, and I should know this, but I don't, so I'll just blab about it publicly and show how dumb I am. If players are brought to a presser or brought to this like mixed zone, would they bring unvaccinated players?
That's a good question. I mean, I wouldn't think so.
And if that's the case, then you don't need to ask the question.
Right.
Whoever shows up, we know they're vaccinated, but maybe I'm wrong. Someone help me out.
Just makes sense.
I'm going to text someone with the Titans.
There you go. We'll figure out the answer to that question. Got a texter on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Speaking of vaccinations, the NFL impact with Frank Reich testing positive after being vaccinated. Does this turn the NFL upside down? So if you missed it yesterday, Frank Reich, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, testing positive for COVID. He has been vaccinated. How do you think this is handled by the NFL? Because Frank Reich will not be the last person this happens to as they go out throughout the process here. How do you think they handle vaccinated people testing positive, both in the preseason before training camp, but also once the season starts and you get kind of on that weekly schedule as well?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, this is why if you get to a certain point, right now they still have testing every 2 weeks, but
yeah.
The whole idea is if everybody's vaccinated, then you could have it and you would still be safe and you would not be as transmissible, all these things. And all that is still true, but you're still going to have positives. I mean, at this point, I guess it's just like John Rahm, right?
Yeah. He's tested positive twice.
Yeah. He's been vaccinated for a while. He's missed a tournament he would have won in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Sucks. I mean, it sucks. But the way – so – like the NC State situation, right? I mean, that was triggered by someone being sick, but the NCAA, the rules of 85% were basically then now you can just go about your business. The idea being when we get to a certain point of vaccination, we have herd immunity, and then we are protected collectively against the virus.
Right. So, it happened with Frank Reich yesterday. That's not going to be the last time we see this come up in the NFL. So be interested to see what happens on that front. I think when you look at Dupree and Farley with the Titans, my guess is, based on Mike Vrabel's history, going to be very cautious with injuries in training camp. Now, I think Dupree and Farley are two different scenarios too. Like, Dupree's obviously been in the league, and he has been a productive player in the league. So preseason, not really all that important for him. I think just getting him back up to full speed and to football shape is important for him. Farley, you want as many reps as you can get out of him. So that's going to be an interesting balance if you're the Titans. When and if he's healthy and ready to go for training camp, how do you balance the need to get him out there and to get him on the field and to get those reps? Because remember, he's not played football in 2 years. He needs some reps. How do you balance that while also trying to make sure that he's healthy and ready for the long haul of an NFL season? That's going to be kind of an interesting balance that Mike Vrabel and this staff are going to have to walk with Caleb Farley.
Well, but I can't imagine any conversation that's like, he's just got to get ready now.
Sure.
I mean, it's a pick that you hope gives you a top cornerback for years, and certainly there's room for him to help this year. But I just think it's very simply be as cautious as possible with him. That'd be my guess. I'd be surprised if there's any, the discussion about urgency with him this year. Even though, if he misses a lot of the season, people are going to be mad. People are going to be mad.
Right,
yeah.
But if he's not playing, they need him on the field this year. You've got Fulton and you've got Janoris Jenkins. You've got Elijah Molden coming in as well. But, what are the odds that everybody in the secondary is going to stay healthy this year? Probably not very high.
No, for sure. I mean, look, if he's not able to play this year, a lot of this year, then again, you go back and say, what did you think on draft night and how different is reality from it? It has to be somewhat different.
Right.
But I'm just saying during camp, even if it means the first month of the season is just very limited and you're still learning and you're just not comfortable with him out there yet, like comfortable in terms of a rookie in the defense, then you live with that.
Yeah, I would say so. Coming up
But
next,
it'll be disappointing if he's not out there at all during camp, of course.
Coming up next, we'll continue the conversation on the Titans. The power rankings have come out at theathletic.com, and are the Titans already being disrespected before the season even begins? So we'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Ryan Porth here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Adam Schefter has put out a picture of Aaron Rodgers waltzing his way back into Packers training camp this morning, wearing a T-shirt from The Office, the television series, and sunglasses that are bigger than his head while walking back in with a man bun. It's quite the photo with Aaron Rodgers walking back into the Green Bay Packers facility today.
So he's saying that Brian Gutekunst is Michael Scott.
Maybe so. That could be what he's saying.
So what? Okay, so Michelle.
I wonder what that conversation's like once they get in there.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Brian. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, pal.
Anything happened this offseason?
Meanwhile, Michelle sends us. Okay, so Bakhtiari was upset with him.
He was joking.
Okay. And then it becomes this Packers OT took it personally.
Yes, yeah, he was joking.
Yeah, I said it as a joke.
Yeah.
He posted it. He was like, I'm upset. And then everybody thought he was like actually upset.
See?
They work out together.
This is why the media gets ripped on.
A lot of interesting characters at left tackle in this league. Taylor Lewan, David Bakhtiari. They're like cut from the same cloth. Very interesting guys.
Yeah, not always.
Not always, but a couple of those right there. Something else.
Actually, offensive linemen, I would say, by and large, if you pick like a position group that's most interesting and like off the wall, probably those guys.
Well, you got to be
the amount of eating alone is
the amount of
special.
eating, but you got to be a little bit off your rocker anyway to just sign up for, hey, every single snap I'm going to just charge into this other gigantic human being and sit there and hit each other all play long.
Yeah.
Takes a different kind of person to do that.
That's true.
So
you also would rather do that than pass pro all game.
That is true. That is true.
So I'm DMing with Teresa Walker. So we got Vrabel and Teresa Walker from Tokyo tomorrow.
That's right.
There you go.
Vrabel coming on the show tomorrow at 7:00. We'll get Teresa Walker on from Tokyo as well. So it's going to be an all-encompassing edition of Robby and Rexrode tomorrow here on the show. Right now discussing the Titans in training camp. And, Joe, you've been a part of a piece at theathletic.com along with, I think, 30 of your other colleagues at The Athletic that have put together power rankings for the NFL, each team as they head into training camp. And I was very interested when I saw and clicked on this piece to figure out where the Titans fit in this ranking. And I'm not necessarily surprised too much by where the Titans are. And I'm not surprised by the team that's directly in front of them because I wondered what this would look like. At number 10 in the power rankings, the Indianapolis Colts. Carson Wentz coming into town. The Indianapolis Colts at number 10 on the power rankings. Number 11, one spot behind the Colts, the Tennessee Titans. So the Colts getting a little bit more love in the power rankings than the Tennessee Titans. You and I have talked about this, and it's a two-team race in the AFC South. I think the Titans are the favorite. I think they should be the favorite. I like the Titans better than I like the Colts in terms of my confidence of winning this division. I don't know that that's going to be the case nationwide. I think the Colts are going to receive a lot of love. The Vegas lines reflect that as well. It's very close between the Titans and the Colts. Are you surprised in the power rankings at theathletic.com that the Colts are ranked higher than the Titans?
Not super surprised, but I voted, like you said, I had the Titans 6th or 7th overall. I had them 3rd in the AFC. I had them ahead of the Colts by a few spots, not a ton of spots, but a few spots. And so imagine if that homer vote wasn't in there, where this would end up. There's some people who it's a combination probably. Some people who have real misgivings about the Titans defense, which is totally fair. Some people who love the Colts roster and think Carson Wentz is going to have a total career renaissance reunited with Frank Reich. That's fair. Could happen. But I think you touched on it earlier, and I think that the Tannehill disrespect is probably the tiebreaker.
But isn't that not strange where people have more, I guess, appreciation or hope in Carson Wentz than they do Ryan Tannehill at this point? Like, what am I missing? I get it. He's going back and he's reunited with his old coach. That's fine. He's got a better offensive line. I think there's a good chance Carson Wentz comes in and plays okay for Indianapolis. But, like, I think some people think he's going to turn back into this MVP candidate, and I don't see it. I could be wrong. I just don't see it.
I don't either. I don't really agree with either the extreme expectations of Wentz. I mean, I don't think he's going to come in and completely stink it up.
No.
I don't think he's going to come in and be an MVP. I think he's probably going to be pretty good. Is he going to be better than Phillip Rivers last year? I don't know. He's a very different quarterback. I mean, he can do a lot more athletically if he's all healthy. So that's going to help them. He's also a little bit less prone, for the most part, to making those ridiculous mistakes that Rivers has just always made. But Rivers also will get you about 70% completion rate, 4,000 yards, and win a lot of games and score you a lot of touchdowns and just befuddle the heck out of defenses with his efficiency. So I just don't know that it's some huge upgrade overall. I think the Tannehill thing is I don't know why. That's a great question. Like those two guys. My tiebreaker is that. That's my tiebreaker.
In favor of the Titans.
Yeah, that's my tiebreaker. I feel better about the Titans quarterback than the Colts quarterback. And I think everybody should feel that way. But obviously they don't.
Talk about there's some interesting spots on this list, these power rankings. At number 4, the Baltimore Ravens at number 4. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the Ravens are a very good team. I don't know that I'd have them at number 4 in the league. Like, that seems a little high to me, with the Ravens being at number 4. We've talked about the love fest for the L.A. Rams. They're at number 5 on this list as well. So the Rams and the Ravens both in the top 5. Obviously, Buffalo at number 3. Tampa Bay at number 2, Kansas City at number 1 in the power rankings at theathletic.com.
Are Tampa Bay fans mad, by the way?
Probably.
They just won it. They just crushed the Chiefs.
I mean,
but come on.
Come on.
Take the dub. Take the ring. Be happy.
The Titans are at number 6 in terms of AFC teams on this list. So ahead of them were obviously the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Colts. The Browns coming in at number 7 on this list. Jadeveon Clowney.
That's true. Clowney tips the scales.
He is mentioned in this piece.
That's right. I mean, look.
I think the Browns will be pretty good.
I think the Browns will be good. I mean, I like the Browns roster a lot. I like the Browns. I like the Bills, Ravens, Titans. I think that's and Colts. I mean, I would put them at the back end of that group, but that's the group right behind the Chiefs in my mind. And you can kind of mix them up. I put the Bills ahead of the Titans, and I put the Titans ahead of the Browns and the Colts. But it's close.
The Chargers getting a lot of love too. They're at number 13 on this list, and I think Lindsey Jones is the one that kind of like put all the pieces together and started each comment section off.
Yeah.
And she says, quote, "I'm not going to call anyone out here publicly, but if my colleague who picked the Chargers at number 6 would like to identify himself or herself in the comments below, that would be great." So apparently somebody at The Athletic had the LA Chargers at number 6 in the power rankings.
Is it Chargers beat writer Daniel Popper? Is there a bigger homer than me?
I don't know.
I'm looking through the comments to see if anybody fessed up. Wow.
Number 6.
I don't see any confessions.
I don't either. I don't know. Look, I get it. Justin Herbert had a phenomenal year. Joey Bosa's coming back. You know, you got a new coaching staff coming in as well. I think there's a lot to like about the Chargers. Whoever voted for them at number 6, I'm like, I don't know about that. That's a little high.
Yeah, that's absolutely too high.
Yes.
So many things have to break right. But they could be one of those surprise teams. There's a lot in the AFC. There's actually, now that you mention the comments, I'm going through them. Connor C., even at 32 out of 32, I think the Texans are ranked way too high.
Yes. Yes. The bottom 2 teams, and this is now in the Athletics poll, and I think ESPN came out with one as well. Detroit and Houston seem to be pretty universally assumed to be the worst 2 teams in the league.
I don't say nice things about the Lions too often, but I like the Lions better than the Texans.
Yeah, me too.
Let me tell you.
Me too. Although the Texans still have Deshaun Watson at this moment.
Yeah, I guess technically that is true.
See what happens on that front.
Something should be happening soon on that front.
You would think so. When we come back, we'll continue to take your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. And also, the SEC has come out with a statement about adding Oklahoma and Texas. We'll get to that coming up next as well. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Joe, you're not going to believe this, but the SEC and Commissioner Greg Sankey have come out with a statement regarding Texas and Oklahoma and the rumors that they're involved in pursuing the SEC. Would you like to hear that statement? We're going to do it right now.
Oh, he actually said it out loud?
No. I'm going to read it.
Oh, you're going to read it? Yeah,
Yes.
read it. Yes.
This coming from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. Quote, the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas, two esteemed academic institutions with storied athletics programs, today submitted formal requests for invitations to become members of the Southeastern Conference in 2025. While the SEC has not proactively sought new members, we will pursue significant change when there is a clear consensus among our members that such actions will further enrich the experiences of our student athletes and lead to greater academic and athletic achievement across our campuses. The presidents and chancellors of the SEC, in their capacity as the conference's chief executive officers, will consider these requests in the near future. Per the bylaws of the SEC, a vote of at least 3/4 of the SEC's 14 members is required to extend an invitation for membership. That is the statement from Greg Sankey of the SEC regarding the two esteemed academic institutions submitting their requests formally in the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas.
There's so much steam coming off that pile of poo I can barely see in front of my face. Amazing. You're
That was
a
an
genius.
incredible statement.
Make sure you get the academic first, and make sure you talk about how this is about enriching the experiences of your student athletes.
And also, while the SEC has not proactively sought new members, we will pursue significant change.
Actually, now that you mention it, we will consider this. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Texas and Oklahoma. We will now think about maybe adding you. We will convene. Actually, let's go meet in College Station, Texas.
So, in all seriousness, this is probably going to get approved like tomorrow or Thursday. We're very close to Texas and Oklahoma being in the SEC.
Yeah, Thursday is the
Thursday.
day, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the day the presidents are. Yeah, they will talk. They will delve into the academic offerings of both of these fine universities and determine whether this makes sense or not.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do we think the vote ends up being 14-0, or does Texas A&M hold strong?
I hope Texas A&M does not buckle. Make sure everybody knows. No.
We didn't want this.
Yeah, we're not on the same page.
Should we predict what we think they're going to be?
I say Texas A&M holds strong. I'm going 13-1.
I'm going 14-0.
Yeah, you think they're going to just fall in line? Well, I guess one thing about that is, Michelle, you're a tiebreaker.
I was going to say 13-1 too.
Okay.
I hope Texas A&M stays strong.
I will, but see from their
I hope they do
perspective. But from their perspective, some people will make the case. No, but we can spin this. No, we wanted this all along.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, we welcome this. We wanted this rivalry to resume. This is great.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't do anything about it, you may as well pretend like it doesn't kill you inside.
Sure. I think it's going to be 14-0.
More statements from Greg Sankey. That's fantastic. Not only has he just gone out there and just slit Bob Bowlesby's throat, now he's dumping a huge pile of manure in the grave.
Well said. Well done by Greg Sankey and the SEC on that front. Nicole Auerbach, who we had on the show earlier, tweeting out, quote, "It's cute how Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC coordinated the timing of their statements today. Definitely a new relationship that has absolutely not been planned or in the works for months."
Maybe a little sarcasm.
Maybe so. So it looks like we're on the fast track for Texas and Oklahoma becoming members of the SEC, that officially being formalized today, and the request being formalized from Texas and Oklahoma. And we will see what happens on that front. I would imagine Thursday they'll probably be new members of the SEC. Jeff on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Thank you, Joe, for speaking the truth and calling that BS statement the BS that it is. Like everything, it's always about money. Joe Rexrode, you are a truth speaker here on the show.
Well, that's nice, but can we talk about Adam Vingan right now?
What's he doing?
So this awesome picture of Aaron Rodgers on this big day for you in Packard Nation, or Cheesehead Nation, whatever the hell you guys call each other. Vingan quote tweets it and says, "I've never understood the appeal of The Office."
Really?
What?
Look, I will admit, I've watched it. It's not my favorite thing, but it's good. I like it.
I mean, when you watch The Office, it doesn't make you laugh?
Yeah, it's funny. But it's not like my favorite show ever, like it is some people, but it's good.
So,
I don't think Vingan's seen it.
But how weird is that?
I've never seen it.
Really?
No, I couldn't get into it.
It blows me away. But this is coming from someone who, and this is bad parenting 101 here again. I've got a lot of those segments. My 10-year-old daughter has watched every episode of that.
Yeah.
Multiple times, and actually, if there's not something that someone wants to put on the TV, she just defaults puts The Office on the TV. Loves it, which I don't like it that much, but I think it's one of the it's in the short list of funniest shows ever. Like, I love The Simpsons, Vingan, but you got to give The Office a chance.
I will say Adam Vingan kind of put the torches to Ryan Porth. Porth tweeted back at him and said, "You're not American, Adam." And Adam Vingan's response on Twitter was, "Neither is The Office, since it was adapted from a British show."
And that's pretty good. By the way, that's awesome too. And we watched that before The American Office, but it's only a 2-season show, The British Office. Highly recommend. Hilarious. Gareth was
that,
Dwight before
that I have
Dwight.
not seen.
Gareth was Dwight before Dwight.
What do you think about this take from Andrew? That 70s show is better than The Office. I like that 70s
I
show.
disagree, but I love that 70s show.
I would say I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But that is basically because my father is Red Foreman. So so it's a very personal connection.
That is a great show, actually.
It's awesome.
I mean, that's, yeah. Pass the Ducci on the left-hand side.
That's right. Some great shows out there. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get involved with The Office.
But like anybody who look, like I'll forgive you, Michelle. I'd like you to check it out.
I'll try it
at some point.
I'll try it.
But Vingan's old. He should have seen this.
Yeah, I mean, but so he says he's never seen The Appeal. That tells me that he has actually tried. Like if you watch, I mean, to me, I don't know how you aren't hooked on that show after 2 episodes, but I also think Seinfeld is probably still number 1, and that's a pretty polarizing show. Some people don't like that much.
I like Seinfeld. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Vincent texting in from Dixon. That statement would have been less offensive if he just said, because we can, it's about the money, deal with it. Talking about Greg Sankey's statement.
I mean, I honestly think that when Sankey was crafting that statement, there were at least a couple times where he cackled, an evil cackle, right? Like, this is just hilarious. Let's really play up the academic part of this.
Yes.
But remember, Sankey works for the presidents. The presidents vote. Sankey doesn't vote. Sankey makes all this stuff happen. He's like the fixer, right? He's like the wolf.
Yeah.
He's Warren Wolf. But the bosses are still the presidents, so
That's true.
they need to feel good about this statement and talking about the student athletes.
I think they probably feel fine about it.
Yes.
Would be
They're
my
probably
guess.
cackling an evil cackle, too.
Adam Vingan texting me in all capital letters, I'm not old, and that he's tried The Office. It's not funny. That's a direct quote.
We don't have time today.
Maybe we'll discuss this tomorrow.
We have like 60 seconds left, but that's just ridiculous. This might have to be the next rant. Elijah, yay or nay on The Office? Oh, my God. All right. Just get me out of here today.
Nate texting in, the best Seinfeld episode is when Kramer puts his shirt in the oven for it to be warm. So Nate, a big fan of Seinfeld as well.
I actually like the pirate shirt episode a lot, where Jerry has to wear the puffy pirate shirt on the Today Show.
Michelle, have you seen the Seinfeld? There's no way she's seen Seinfeld, right?
I've seen episodes.
Okay.
My stepdad is a huge fan.
Okay.
But not religiously.
How about Curb Your Enthusiasm? Yeah. That's like Seinfeld with an edge.
It is. It is.
Top 5 shows ever. Top 5 comedies ever. Curb, Seinfeld, Office.
You've got 10 seconds.
Robby and Rexrode.
Yeah, put us on the list.
Well, if we could read Greg Sankey statements all day, we would be a comedy hour.
That is true. That does it for us here today on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren, Donick, and Chase is coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.